Chapter 234. Chu Xiu was a very vengeful person, and he would not forget the kindness shown to him. This time, it was Xia Xiaolu and Mo Tianlin who helped him, there was no doubt about it. Although he knew that Mo Tianlin and Xia Xiaolu were willing to help him, they had their own reasons, and they were also a little utilitarian, but Chu Xiu did not care. If Lu Fengxian was here today, then Lu Fengxian would definitely not say a word, and would directly help Chu Xiu when the gate of divine martial attacked him, but unfortunately, there was only one Lu Fengxian. But no matter what, in the end, Mo Tianlin and Xia Xiaolu helped him a lot. If it was someone else who was narrow-minded, they would probably complain about why Mo Tianlin and Xia Xiaolu did not make a move earlier. Although Chu Xiu's heart was not big, he was not narrow-minded to this extent. Chu Xiu always looked at the results, not the process, so he remembered this kindness. Mo Tianlin quickly waved his hand and said, "Brother Chu, there is no need to be so polite. We only came out to warn Bai Wuji, we did not do much." Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "With my condition at that time, if Bai Wuji had made a move, I would have had to pay a great price to resist. I will remember this kindness." Xia Xiaolu and Mo Tianlin looked at each other, then cupped their hands at Chu Xiu and said, "Brother Chu, you are too polite." Chu Xiu's attitude was exactly what they wanted. Otherwise, why would they waste so much effort to save Chu Xiu? After exchanging greetings with Xia Xiaolu and Mo Tianlin, Chu Xiu was ready to directly return to the Ji State Prefecture to temporarily recuperate in seclusion. Although Chu Xiu had shown off his prowess today by killing 2 three-flower realm martial artists in a row and taking on 100 enemies by himself, he had also expended a lot of his energy. His internal organs had also suffered from the backlash of the demonic qi, which caused him to suffer serious injuries. Fortunately, Xiao Baiyu took action in the end and directly suppressed all the remaining demonic qi in his body. Otherwise, Chu Xiu would not have the time to chat here. After returning to the Ji State Prefecture, Mo Tianlin personally found a safe inn for Chu Xiu to recuperate. The Mo family was the local tyrant of Eastern Qi. There were many businesses that belonged to the Mo family in the entire land of Eastern Qi. The Ji State Prefecture was so big, so naturally, the Mo family also had businesses here, and the inn was one of them. 3 days later, in the inn room, Chu Xiu's internal injuries had almost healed, but he still had no intention of coming out. Instead, he continued to condense his essence, qi, and spirit, wanting to take the opportunity to step into the three-flower realm. To be honest, this time, Chu Xiu had to thank Yan Tingting. Without her, Chu Xiu had been stuck at the peak of the physical invulnerability realm for so long, and it would probably take a long time for him to break through this bottleneck. This battle could be said to be the most intense and dangerous battle Chu Xiu had experienced in so many years. Of course, although the time when he faced the Heavenly Sin Branch leader was also relatively dangerous, at that time, Chu Xiu could only passively defend, and he only had the strength to withstand one move. Therefore, that battle did not bring much experience to Chu Xiu. This time, however, Chu Xiu had consecutively killed warriors in the three-flower realm. In addition, he had fought against so many inner and physical invulnerability experts. Although it was not truly 1 against 100, this time, it had brought Chu Xiu enough training. After his injuries had healed, Chu Xiu began to prepare to break into the three-flower realm. Moreover, Daoist priest Xian Cheng's teachings had also brought a lot of benefits to Chu Xiu. Although Daoist priest Xian Cheng talked about the 5 qis collecting in mind, these principles were the same as understanding one method, and Chu Xiu also had some understanding of the three-flower realm. In the 5-tier of qi-controlling realm, the inner and physical invulnerability realms were different worlds. At the three-flower realm and 5 qis collecting in mind, it was another world. The so-called 3 flowers at one's prominence was actually the condensation of one's own essence, qi, and spirit into one, converging into the entrance and aperture acupoints. Finally, it was sublimated to the extreme. Compared to the outer invulnerability realm and the three flowers at one's prominence realm, the power that could be unleashed was even more astonishing. Of course, this multiplied growth also depended on how strong the martial artist was. Even if a warrior with a weak foundation reached the three-flower realm, their accumulation might not be as high as Chu Xiu's. For example, the two elders from the Divine Force sect were like this. It could not be said that they were too weak, only that they were not strong enough. Even if they reached the three-flower realm, they were still not as strong as Chu Xiu in terms of strength. At that moment, Chu Xiu was sitting cross-legged on the bed in the inn. There was not the slightest bit of primary energy around his body. However, his aura was continuously rising. His essence, energy and soul had been condensed to the extreme, forming cyclones that continuously revolved around Chu Xiu's body, condensing within his profound entrances and acupoints. When this power reached the extreme, at this moment, Chu Xiu had completely emptied his mind, as if something had broken. When the extreme reached the end, it was sublimation. The misty cyclones were divided into three, circling above Chu Xiu's head, and finally returned to Chu Xiu's body, causing Chu Xiu's body to seem to be shrouded in a layer of light. The three-flower realm was completed. Opening his eyes, Chu Xiu let out a long breath. The breath he exhaled was actually also a misty and powerful spiritual qi. At this moment, Chu Xiu could be considered to have truly reached the peak of essence, qi, and spirit. After stepping into the three-flower realm, Chu Xiu's own strength did not change in the slightest. However, if he were to attack now, the explosive power would definitely be several times or even 10 times stronger than before. After truly reaching the three-flower realm, Chu Xiu finally understood why this realm was called the fifth tier of qi controlling. The so-called qi controlling between inner and physical invulnerability was just the simplest use of spiritual qi. The more difficult part was just the control of vigor, just like how Chu Xiu used vigor to avoid the rain on a rainy day, and Xia Xiaolu used vigor to walk on the surface of the lake. To be able to achieve this level was basically already the limit of the physical invulnerability realm. On the other hand, the three-flower realm was already beyond the scope of using vigor to control power. It was using the spirit to control the qi. Wherever the heart went, it could move mountains and rivers. The explosive power that could be brought was naturally multiplied. Chu Xiu stretched, opened the door, and walked out. Including cultivation and breaking through to the three-flower realm, it only took Chu Xiu 6 days, which was not a long time. At this time, the God Weapon Conference had not yet begun, but there were more and more people in the Ji State Prefecture. As soon as Chu Xiu walked out, he saw a waiter standing guard at the door. When he saw Chu Xiu come out, the waiter hurriedly said, "Young Master Chu, have you come out of seclusion?" Chu Xiu nodded. The waiter said, "Young Master Chu has instructed that if young Master Chu comes out, you can go to the Purple Cloud restaurant to find them." Young Master Chu and young Master Xia are both in the Purple Cloud restaurant. The Purple Cloud restaurant was also a big restaurant in the Ji State Prefecture. However, Chu Xiu was a little puzzled. Why did they not go to the Dragon Gathering Pavilion? That was where a large number of warriors gathered. Is there a problem at the Dragon Gathering Pavilion? The waiter nodded and said, "There is a problem because there are too many warriors coming and going from Eastern Qi. If some of the warriors have grievances with each other, it is easy for them to fight each other in the Dragon Gathering Pavilion." Although there was King and Li's reputation, there were many cultivators who had conflicts in the Dragon Assembling Pavilion during this period of time. Although they were all suppressed by King and Lu, the Dragon Assembling Pavilion was in a mess. In the end, King and Lu had no choice but to temporarily close the Dragon Assembling Pavilion during the Divine Weapon Convention. Hearing this, Chu Xiu nodded. So that was how it was, but Chu Xiu still felt that something was wrong. After all, Jiang Wenyuan could be considered a local snake in Eastern Qi. His reputation as the Prince of Peace and Joy could intimidate many people. For example, when they were on the 7th floor of the Dragon Gatherer Pavilion, Jiang Wenyuan had wanted to cause trouble for him. However, because they were in the Dragon Gatherer Pavilion, he had temporarily given up. Now, Jiang Wenyuan was so angry that he directly closed the Dragon Gathering Pavilion just because some warriors had a few conflicts in the Dragon Gathering Pavilion. His psychological endurance was a little too low, right? However, Chu Xiu did not care about Jiang Wenyuan's matter, and directly asked the waiter to bring him to the Purple Cloud restaurant. The Purple Cloud restaurant was considered a big restaurant in the Ji State Prefecture, and it also had a background, but this so-called background was only a local force in the Ji State Prefecture, and it could not be brought to the surface. If warriors had grievances with each other in the Purple Cloud restaurant, they also did not dare to interfere. Therefore, the Purple Cloud restaurant simply gave up. If they wanted to fight in the Purple Cloud restaurant, they could, but if they broke it, they would have to pay double the compensation. Otherwise, they would fight outside. The Purple Cloud restaurant could afford to offend those warriors who did not have a background, and some warriors with a background would not lack the Purple Cloud restaurant. Of course, face was the most important, and some would even pay several times more than the Purple Cloud restaurant. At this time, in the Purple Cloud restaurant, except for the top floor, which was occupied by the disciples of the big families, and it was quiet, the other floors were a mess. Low-level warriors who drank and played finger-guessing games, and disciples of small sects who schemed to curry favor, these people were everywhere. Among these people, there were even some warriors who opened bets, betting on the final winner of the God Weapon Convention. On the first floor of the Purple Cloud restaurant, there was a betting table, which was filled with the names of the young elites who had come to participate in the God Weapon Convention, and below it were the odds. A stout warrior with a kind smile on his face was introducing the information and odds of the young elites who had come to participate in the God Weapon Convention to the people around him, so that the people around him could quickly place their bets. This person was a hall master of the Ji State Prefecture's Wuyuan Gang, Smiling Tiger, Han Kuei. This Purple Cloud restaurant was actually a business of the Wuyuan Gang, so Han Kuei could open a betting table here with great fanfare. Pointing to the betting board behind him, Han Kuei said loudly, "Those who want to bet, look carefully, the information and odds are all on it." Wu County's Luo family's young Miss Luo Feiheng, 11th on the Dragon and Tiger list, holding the Blood Spear Red Kite, odds of 3-1. World Alliance's Xia Xiao Lu, 12th on the Dragon and Tiger list, odds of 2-1. There is also Guanxi Patrol Inspector Chu Xiu, who came from the Guanzhong torture room. He is a dark horse. A few days ago at the Water Cloud Temple, he fought against 100 opponents and won. Although he is only ranked 18th on the Dragon and Tiger list, his odds are the same as Luo Feiheng, 3-1. Chapter 235. Above the Mirror Lake, during the battle at the Water Cloud Monastery, Chu Xiu had single-handedly fought against 100 people. That battle had shocked many people. Chu Xiu's strength was already seriously not in line with his ranking on the Longhu list. Therefore, he was known as the Dark Horse of this God Weapon Conference. He was even comparable to Luo Feiheng. Just as everyone was making a ruckus on the first floor and starting to place their bets, Chu Xiu stepped into the Purple Cloud restaurant. Seeing Chu Xiu's figure, the expressions of some people who recognized Chu Xiu immediately changed. They could not help but retreat to the side and respectfully lowered their heads. There were many people watching the battle at the Mirror Lake that day. At the very least, many people in the Purple Cloud restaurant had already recognized Chu Xiu's identity. As these people began to fall silent, those who did not recognize Chu Xiu also subconsciously followed the crowd and made way for him. They did not dare to continue making a ruckus. In an instant, the entire first floor of the Purple Cloud restaurant was dead silent. Han Kuei's chubby figure quickly ran in front of Chu Xiu and said respectfully, "Young Master Chu, are you here to look for Young Master Mo and Young Master Xie? They are on the third floor. I will bring you there now." Previously, Han Kuei's smile could be considered kind. However, now, Han Kuei's attitude was flattering. He looked like a pug, which was simply unbearable. No matter what, Han Kuei was a local tyrant in the Ji State Prefecture and the hall master of the Five Elements gang. Although he was not considered overbearing, he was very sinister. That was why he had the nickname of a smiling tiger. But now? He had become a pug. Han Kuei did not care what others thought. In his opinion, in front of such a fierce person, he would not have a problem pretending to be a pug. He could even pretend to be a great-grandson. Chu Xiu waved his hand casually and said, "No need. I can go up myself." Han Kuei nodded and watched Chu Xiu go up the stairs. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief. When they couldn't see Chu Xiu anymore, someone at the side asked, "Boss Han, which sect is this disciple from? How can he be so powerful?" Han Kuei sneered and said, "Even if it's a disciple from a major family or sect, except for the top 5 on the Longhu leaderboard, no one can match this person's might. He fought against 100 people in front of the Water Cloud Monastery. Even now, blood can still be seen on the grassland." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone present instantly went into an uproar. This young man with a delicate appearance and without any imposing aura, is that Chu Xiu who caused rivers of blood to flow in front of Water Cloud Temple? You really can't judge a book by its cover. Among the spectators, there were people who said that Chu Xiu was like a crazy demon at that time and was extremely terrifying. At this moment, Han Kuei muttered, "This person has actually come out of seclusion as well. I hope he doesn't cause any trouble later. Otherwise, we should learn from King and Lu and just close down the Purple Cloud restaurant." At this moment, not only were there Chu Xiu's friends in the Purple Cloud restaurant, but there were also many people who didn't like him. The Purple Cloud restaurant didn't have such strict rules as the Dragon Assembling Pavilion. Every floor was open to anyone. So, when Chu Xiu stepped into the 3rd floor, the cultivators who were drinking and chatting in the restaurant immediately stopped talking. After a while, they started talking in low voices again. At this moment, Bai Wuji was also on the 3rd floor with his people. When he saw Chu Xiu arrive, he only glanced coldly at Chu Xiu but didn't say anything. The strength that Chu Xiu had displayed previously had shocked him. Bai Wuji didn't even have the courage to fight Chu Xiu head-on. However, he was not Lin Kaiyun, who would not be able to recover after being defeated once. Bai Wuji, on the other hand, was very open-minded. Even if Chu Xiu was very strong now, he had something that was stronger than Chu Xiu, and that was his background. He was the number 1 person in the younger generation of the Northern Drifting Snow City. In the future, he would also be nurtured as the successor of the Drifting Snow City. But as for Chu Xiu, even if he joined the Guanzhong torture room now, he would only be a member of the Guanzhong torture room. The Guanzhong torture room didn't have the habit of nurturing successors, it had always been the most capable. By the time he became the successor of the city lord and received the resources and inheritance of the Drifting Snow City, Chu Xiu would probably still be in the Guanzhong torture room scheming against each other. Mo Tianlin and Xia Xiaolu were sitting in the corner. When they saw Chu Xiu coming, they quickly called for Chu Xiu to come over. "Brother Chu, your injuries healed quite quickly. You've already come out of seclusion in such a short time," Mo Tianlin said. Chu Xiu picked up the wine cup and poured himself a cup of wine. "I didn't have any serious injuries, and with my talent, it's normal for my injuries to heal quickly." The main reason why Chu Xiu healed so quickly was because of the glass golden thread goo. Of course, the glazed golden thread goo was Chu Xiu's biggest secret. Other than himself, Chu Xiu would not tell anyone else. Therefore, he could only attribute his healing speed to his innate talent. After all, there were many martial artists in the Jianghu who were innately gifted like him. There's still some time before the God Weapon Conference starts. Are there any changes in the Ji state capital during this time? Chu Xiu asked. Mo Tianlin said casually, "What changes can there be? It's just that there are more people coming, and the competition is also a little higher." Brother Chu, you should have seen the bets downstairs. You're a dark horse now, and your winning rate in the God Weapon Conference is even close to that woman, Luo Feiheng. If that woman, Luo Feiheng, doesn't join in the fun, I reckon you have the highest chance of winning this God Weapon Conference. Chu Xiu nodded and said, right, where did Luo Feiheng go? Mo Tianlin curled his lips and said, she's still drinking with the girls in the Phoenix Cry restaurant. This time, she's purely here to play, and doesn't care about the God Weapon. Brother Chu, you're really unlucky this time. That woman is crazy. Even if she doesn't want the God Weapon, don't think that she will go easy on you in the God Weapon Conference. Moreover, she seems to be quite interested in you, so when the time comes, I reckon that she will go all out. After saying that, Mo Tianlin seemed to feel that his words were a little inappropriate, so he quickly corrected himself. I said that she is interested in you, but I didn't mean that, interested, don't think about it the wrong way. Chu Xiu smiled, and just when he was about to say something, Xia Xiaolu suddenly said, Brother Chu, the God Weapon Conference will start in a few days. Be careful during this time, someone might cause trouble for you. Chu Xiu frowned and said, wasn't Yan Tingting taken away by Chancellor Shao? Who else wants to cause trouble for me? Don't tell me someone is really stupid enough to think that if they kill me now, they can still marry Yan Tingting? Xia Xiaolu shook his head and said, it's not because of Yan Tingting. A few days ago, a friend from West Chu told me that someone from Sword King City had come. If you had kept a low profile before this, it wouldn't have been a problem. However, you just caused such a huge commotion that everyone in the city knows about you. You even became the one with the lowest odds downstairs. Sword King City must have noticed you. Those fellows are very vengeful. That's right. Mo Tianlin frowned and said, didn't you say that Lin Kaiyun has been unable to recover? Why would someone from Sword King City come? Could it be that Fang Qishao came? Xia Xiaolu glanced at him and said, if Fang Qishao came, I'm afraid that it would have already caused a big commotion in the city. The person who came is the head disciple of Sword King City's Xingjian Hall, Sword of Great Light, Fei Mo. Mo Tianlin was surprised and said, Fei Mo is a person on the Longhu list of the previous generation. I'm afraid that he has already broken through the Three-Flower Realm by now. How could he still have the face to participate in the God Armament Conference? Xia Xiaolu said, it's not that Fei Mo is participating directly. It's just that there are several other outstanding disciples in Sword King City in addition to Fang Qishao and Lin Kaiyun. Fang Qishao has learned from all four major sword halls, and that doesn't count. On the other hand, Lin Kaiyun is a disciple of the Battle Sword Hall, and the other three major sword halls also have relatively outstanding disciples. Therefore, after Lin Kaiyun was unable to recover, Sword King City naturally had to find some disciples to train. These young disciples are all new to the martial world. Sword King City was afraid that they wouldn't know the rules, so they asked Fei Mo to bring them to participate in the God Armament Conference. Although Fei Mo and Lin Kaiyun are not of the same generation, they are good friends in Sword King City. Brother Chu, you have to be careful. Although Fei Mo can't participate in the God Armament Conference, he can make it so that you can't participate in the God Armament Conference either. It was undoubtedly against the rules to kill those who participated in the conference before the conference. But the problem was that the God Armament Conference wasn't a serious competition. Wasn't it normal to settle some grudges before the conference? Although strictly speaking, Fei Mo was a disciple of the previous generation's Tiger and Dragon list and was not of the same generation as them. Fei Mo was still in his early 40s. In the martial world, he was still a member of the younger generation. At this time, Chu Xiu suddenly asked, that Fei Mo you're talking about, what was his rank on the Tiger and Dragon list in the past? Mo Tianlin thought for a moment and said, I can't remember. He definitely wasn't in the top 10, nor was he in the top 20. I think he was in the top 30. Hearing this, Chu Xiu's mouth curved into a smile. Seeing Chu Xiu's expression, Mo Tianlin hurriedly said, Brother Chu, don't look down on Fei Mo just because of this. At the same level, he was 100% inferior to you. But after all, he has cultivated for many more years than us. This accumulation isn't on the same level. The elites on the Tiger and Dragon list in the past aren't people. The two divine martial sects, three flowers gathering Zenith realm martial artists who died at your hands. The gap in strength between martial artists of the same level was huge, especially among the fifth level of the Qi controlling stage. Some of the weaker 5 Qi's origin realm martial artists didn't even have as strong an aura Qi as Chu Xiu when he was at the physical invulnerability stage. But Fei Mo was different. As an elite disciple of Sword King City and a former elite on the Tiger and Dragon list, Fei Mo's strength was definitely at the top among martial artists of the same level. Just as they were discussing Sword King City, several sword-wielding martial artists wearing white robes and white headscarves came up from downstairs. This immediately attracted everyone's attention. Mo Tianlin was stunned. He looked at Xia Xiaolu and said, "I just realized that you seem to have the potential to jinx things." Chapter 236. Judging by the way they were dressed, it was obvious that they were the disciples of Sword King City. The leader of the group was a young man in his 30s. He carried a long sword with a transparent, glass-like hilt on his back. Behind him, a young warrior who was less than 20 years old but had already reached the Xiantian realm said as he looked around, "Senior Brother Fei, the warriors of the Central Plains don't seem to be that strong. Why can't we participate in the God Weapon Convention?" Some of the surrounding warriors couldn't help but feel angry when they heard the arrogant words of the Sword King City disciple. However, they didn't dare to say anything. Although Sword King City wasn't located in the Central Plains, it dominated the Western Desert. Every year, the small countries offered them countless resources. Moreover, because the Western Desert where Sword King City was located was relatively remote, it wasn't as prosperous as the Central Plains. Therefore, the disciples of Sword King City had nothing to do but practice their swordsmanship all day long. As a result, the disciples of Sword King City were among the fastest in the Jianghu. Most of the warriors present would be in their 20s by the time they stepped into the Xiantian realm. However, in Sword King City, those who reached the Xiantian realm at the age of 20 could only be considered mediocre. Fei Mo said indifferently, "You brats shouldn't look down on others too much. The Central Plains is vast and has countless young elites. You can't underestimate them. You'll know when the God Weapon Convention begins. If you can suppress many young elites in the Jianghu like Junior Brother Fang, then you'll have the right to say such words." While teaching these young disciples, Fei Mo looked around and saw that the third floor seemed to be full. Just as he was about to step into the fourth floor, he saw a figure and couldn't help but stop in his tracks. Fei Mo raised his hand and asked the other disciples of Sword King City to stop. Then, he walked towards Chu Xiu and arrived in front of Chu Xiu. The powerful aura of the three-flower realm bloomed from his body. The aura around him was as sharp as sword qi. A cold light flashed in Fei Mo's eyes as he said, "You're Chu Xiu? The Chu Xiu who crippled Junior Brother Lin?" Fei Mo had never seen Chu Xiu before, but he had heard his name from Lin Kaiyun and the other cultivators of Sword King City. Because of Chu Xiu, Lin Kaiyun, the most outstanding disciple of Sword King City's younger generation besides Fang Qishao, had been unable to recover from this setback. In Sword King City, there was indeed competition between warriors of the same generation. For example, Lin Kaiyun had always been suppressed by Fang Qishao. Therefore, he felt unreconciled and hostile towards Fang Qishao. Although Fermo and Lin Kaiyun were fellow apprentices, strictly speaking, they were two generations of disciples. There was no competition between the two sides, so their relationship was quite good. Last time, when Lin Kaiyun left with Gu Jianglu and the others, Fei Mo had told Lin Kaiyun about some taboos and common knowledge of the Central Plains warriors. After all, Lin Kaiyun spent most of his time cultivating in Sword King City, so he didn't have much experience in the pugilistic world. Who would have thought that after Lin Kaiyun came back the last time, he would be completely unable to recover from the setback. His spirit, qi, and spirit had already been beaten to the point that not even the slightest bit was left. Although his cultivation was still there, his person was already crippled. Fei Mo had a good relationship with Lin Kaiyun, but it was impossible for him to break into the Guanzhong torture room for Lin Kaiyun. Even if he had the heart to do so, he didn't have the strength to do so. In the end, after he came to the Ji province prefecture, he heard that Chu Xiu had single-handedly defeated 100 people here and displayed his invincible might. He was even listed as the most promising candidate to win the God Weapon Convention. Since then, Fei Mo had been suppressing his anger. Their Sword King city's outstanding disciple was crippled by Chu Xiu, but in the end, Chu Xiu became famous in the pugilistic world. This was unfair. Sitting next to Chu Xiu, Mo Tianlin and Xia Xiaolu suddenly frowned. They didn't have a good impression of the Sword King city's cultivators. These people were used to being arrogant in the western desert, but now they were also arrogant in the Central Plains. Did they really think that there was no one else in the Central Plains warriors? Moreover, now that they had decided to befriend Chu Xiu, and Chu Xiu was also sitting at the same table as them, Fei Mo coming to look for trouble with Chu Xiu was also looking for trouble with them. But before the two of them could speak, Chu Xiu said lightly, "I'm Chu Xiu, yes, but there is one thing you need to understand. I, Chu Xiu, will take responsibility for my actions. I won't take responsibility for things that aren't my fault. Lin Kaiyun was injured by me, but I didn't cripple him." Hearing this, everyone present suddenly went into an uproar. Before, they hadn't realized who this junior brother Lin Fei Mo was talking about was, but after hearing Chu Xiu's words, they realized that it was actually Lin Kaiyun, ranked 21st on the human list. Chu Xiu actually crippled Lin Kaiyun before? They hadn't expected that Chu Xiu would have such a glorious battle record, but his courage was really big. Crippling an elite disciple of Sword King City without giving him the slightest bit of face, this person really didn't know the principle of leaving a line for others in the future. Fei Mo said coldly, "Since junior brother Lin returned to Sword King City, his spirit has been thoroughly dispirited. He has completely immersed himself in failure. Although such a person's martial arts haven't been crippled, his person has been crippled." Chu Xiu sneered and said, "That's a joke. That Lin Kaiyun was narrow-minded and couldn't think straight. What does it have to do with me? Don't you know why he attacked me in the Guanzhong torture room? Your Sword King City's people recklessly went to deal with Ghost King sects people and ended up getting killed. But that Lin Kaiyun caused trouble in my Guanzhong torture room. Does he really think that my Guanzhong torture room is a place where he can run wild? Besides, I gave him face at that time. Otherwise, do you think it's as simple as a minor injury?" Hearing Chu Xiu's words, those who originally thought that Chu Xiu was ruthless and merciless immediately changed their opinion. If that was the case, then there was really nothing wrong with how Chu Xiu handled the matter. The Guanzhong torture room was also a major force. As an inspector, if Chu Xiu allowed Lin Kaiyun to cause trouble in his territory, where would he put his face? Therefore, teaching Lin Kaiyun a lesson was a very normal thing. But wasn't this Lin Kaiyun a bit too much? Wasn't he just defeated once? How could he be so traumatized that he had a mental breakdown? As a martial artist, victory and defeat were very common. On the Longhu list, apart from the young celestial master Zhang Chengzhen, who hasn't lost? It must be known that even the sword chief of Sword King City, Fang Qi Shao, was defeated by Zhang Chengzhen. Was Lin Kaiyun so arrogant that he couldn't even accept a single defeat? Of course, they didn't know that Lin Kaiyun wasn't so weak that he couldn't even accept a single defeat. He just couldn't accept losing to a person like Chu Xiu, who was born in the wilderness and had always been inferior to him. Fei Mo was silent for a moment. He naturally knew these details, but Lin Kaiyun was his junior brother, a disciple of Sword King City, and a good friend. Could it be that he would stand on Chu Xiu's side? He, Fei Mo, had always been on the side of those close to him and not reason. Looking at Chu Xiu, Fei Mo said coldly, "Chu Xiu, I didn't come here to reason with you today, but to vent my anger on you. No matter who's right or wrong in this matter, I only know that you were crippled because of my junior brother. If I don't vent this anger, where will my Sword King City's face go? My junior brother was unable to recover in Sword King City, but you were so glorious in the God Weapon Convention. My junior brother can't swallow this anger, and neither can I. I won't bully you. Today, I'll hurt you the same way you hurt my junior brother." Hearing this, everyone present was instantly dumbfounded. Sword King City was said to be overbearing, and they'd finally experienced it today. It was simply unreasonable. Right now, Fei Mo was clearly targeting Chu Xiu. Furthermore, his intentions were extremely malicious. The God Weapon Convention would begin in a few days. If Fei Mo heavily injured Chu Xiu now, it would definitely affect Chu Xiu's performance in the God Weapon Convention. At that time, Chu Xiu, who had the highest chance of winning, would become the one with the lowest chance of winning. Everyone couldn't help but shake their heads. This was the consequence of making too many enemies in the underworld. Chu Xiu had already overcome the tribulation of the divine martial sect, and he probably hadn't even recovered from his injuries yet. But now, Sword King City's people had come looking for trouble. For others, part of the reason why they participated in the God Weapon Convention was for the God Weapon, and the other part was with the intention of networking. However, Chu Xiu was different. He was purely here to settle his grudges. Mo Tianlin and Xia Xiaolu, who were sitting at the same table, frowned when they saw Sword King City's overbearing attitude. They wanted to say something, but Chu Xiu stopped them. Looking at Fei Mo, Chu Xiu said indifferently, "Face is something that you have to earn, not something that others give you. Your junior brother can't defeat me, so you came to vent his anger for him. If you can't defeat me, then wouldn't it be your master's turn next time?" Fei Mo sneered and said, "You're delusional enough to think that you can beat me? You don't know what you're talking about." As soon as his voice fell, Fei Mo didn't continue talking nonsense with Chu Xiu. Instead, he directly grabbed Chu Xiu. 5 dazzling golden lights erupted from his 5 fingers. Impressively, they were 5 incomparably sharp sword chi. Fei Mo wasn't afraid that others would say that Sword King City was overbearing and shameless. Sword King City's people had already seen through it. In the underworld, strength was the most important thing. So what if they were overbearing? As long as Sword King City's swords were sharp enough, they could shut most of the underworld's people up. Seeing Fei Mo's attack, Mo Tianlin and Xia Xiaolu's hearts trembled. Fei Mo was in the top 30 of the Longhu list in the past. There was no need to doubt his strength. They might not be afraid of him when they were at the same level, but Fei Mo had cultivated for more than a decade more than them. His accumulation was terrifying. However, before they could make a move, Chu Xiu had already made his move. This move caused everyone's expression to change. Facing the 5 sword chi, Chu Xiu's hand seals were so fast that it was impossible to see his movements. In an instant, a dazzling Buddhist light erupted. The power condensed and did not dissipate. It was like a Vajra subduing demons. Before the seals had even landed, a thunderous sound had already resounded. Seeing this scene, Mo Tianlin suddenly exclaimed, "Essence, Qi, and Soul. This is the 3-flower realm." Chapter 237. After breaking through to the 3-flower realm, Chu Xiu directly converged the aura on his body and did not show it off. Therefore, Mo Tianlin and the others did not pay much attention to it. They did not expect it either. After all, Chu Xiu was even younger than them. Not only was his combat strength amazing, but breaking through to the next realm required accumulation and epiphanies, all of which required a lot of time. They all had the guidance of famous teachers and the resources of the sect, but none of them had reached the three-flower realm. Therefore, they subconsciously thought that Chu Xiu would not be able to do so. Who would have thought that Chu Xiu would suddenly explode with this kind of strength? This immediately gave everyone a big fright. After Chu Xiu made his move, Fei Mo's expression immediately changed. He had underestimated Chu Xiu. Stepping into the three-flower realm in his early 20s, coupled with the combat strength he had shown before, Chu Xiu could be ranked in the top 10 of the Longhu list. Even the pride of Sword King City, Chief Sword Fang Qi Shao, did not do better than Chu Xiu when he was the same age as Chu Xiu. However, since he had already made his move, there was no way he would stop just like that. In the previous battle at the Water Cloud Temple, Chu Xiu was still at the physical invulnerability realm. He had relied on his crazy drive to fight against 100 people alone. In the end, he had killed so many people that they were scared out of their wits and didn't dare to continue attacking him. However, in reality, Chu Xiu had suffered some injuries. Now, Chu Xiu had displayed the strength of the three-flower realm in the three-flower realm. It was obvious that he had only broken through a few days ago, while Fei Mo had stepped into the three-flower realm in the three-flower realm for several years. The sword chi carried by the 5 sword fingers was extremely sharp. The 5 sword chi merged in mid-air and collided with Chu Xiu's great Vajrawill seal. Suddenly, a burst of aura exploded, and a strong force suddenly attacked Fei Mo, causing his expression to suddenly change. Chu Xiu had only just stepped into the three-flower realm, so how could his strength be so great? It was even stronger than what he had accumulated over the years. Break! Fei Mo furiously roared and his 5 sword fingers exploded, turning into golden sword chi that swirled in the air. Only then did he barely manage to block Chu Xiu's seal. However, his body was unable to withstand such a powerful force and was forced to retreat step by step. The floor beneath his feet also shattered, causing the cultivators eating on the second floor to immediately flee in panic. When the two of them exchanged blows, half of the building was destroyed. Han Kuei, who was still on the first floor, heard the commotion and immediately ran upstairs. When he saw this scene, the smiling tiger almost cried like a dog. When Chu Xiu came to the Purple Cloud restaurant just now, he felt a little uneasy. After all, his ability to cause trouble was famous in the Ji State Prefecture. He heard that on the first day he came to the Ji State Prefecture, he offended Prince Anil. After that, he began a massacre in front of the Water Cloud Temple. Now, Chu Xiu came to the Purple Cloud restaurant, which made Han Kuei a little scared. Seeing this scene, Han Kuei suddenly smiled bitterly in his heart. His worries were right. Wherever Chu Xiu appeared, trouble followed. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have coveted these small advantages and just closed the restaurant. The Purple Cloud restaurant was not like the Dragon Gatherer Pavilion, which was covered with formations everywhere. They could fight however they wanted. If they really let these two fight to their heart's content, the entire Purple Cloud restaurant would probably be destroyed by them. Masters, calm down. Let's calm down. Why can't we sit down and talk things over? Why do you have to fight? Facing Chu Xiu and Fei Mo, Han Kuei didn't even dare to walk over to stop them. He could only earnestly beg from behind. Unfortunately, whether it was Fei Mo or Chu Xiu, neither of them paid attention to Han Kuei. Standing up, Chu Xiu directly rushed toward Fei Mo. The crimson saber in his hand shone in the entire Purple Cloud restaurant, appearing evil and magnificent. As the saber fell, Chu Xiu said coldly, "Back in the Guanzhong torture room, I didn't kill Lin Kaiyun because I gave face to Sword King City and didn't want to cause trouble. However, since you don't want to accept my kindness, don't blame me for being ruthless. Aren't you close brothers with Lin Kaiyun? Don't you want to get revenge for him? Well then, since Lin Kaiyun has crippled his spirit, I will cripple your body today. I'll make you a cripple so that you can accompany your junior brother Lin." Arrogant. Fei Mo's eyes showed a touch of coldness. Just now, he didn't expect Chu Xiu to have stepped into the three-flower realm. Therefore, he suffered a loss because of a moment of carelessness. However, he didn't even draw his sword just now. He only pointed his sword at his enemy. It should be noted that 70% of the combat power of the warriors of Sword King's city was based on the long sword in their hands. The long sword on Fei Mo's back didn't have a scabbard. Instead, it was wrapped in linen, looking a little simple. However, as he held the long sword in his hand, his gang qi erupted, shattering the linen. A touch of bright light instantly lit up the entire third floor. Fei Mo's sword was an extremely beautiful long sword. The body of the sword was golden and translucent like amber, shining with a mesmerizing luster. As Fei Mo poured his astral energy into the longsword instantly shone with a dazzling radiance, looking extremely gorgeous. The name of his sword was Light. Under the extreme brilliance of the sword, it could kill all evil. The blood-refined divine gang, which carried a strong bloody aura, collided with the dazzling sword momentum. Suddenly, a violent explosion of gang qi was heard. The sky was filled with crimson saber aura that fell like a rainstorm from Chu Xiu. The saber momentum was endless, and it was so dense that it was suffocating. A look of surprise appeared in Fei Mo's eyes. Chu Xiu had only stepped into the three-flower realm a few days ago. How could his inner force be so strong? It was so strong that it could even compete with him and even slightly suppress him. Fei Mo shouted, and the sword of light in his hand bloomed with endless brilliance. The sword light was so bright that it looked like the sun. Any darkness and evil would be completely destroyed under this extremely bright sword momentum. As the powerful sun-like sword momentum fell, everyone saw the dazzling light erupt, and countless blood-colored saber auras were extinguished under the light. At this moment, Fei Mo actually had the upper hand. As a figure in the top 30 of the Longhu list of the previous generation, Fei Mo still had some skills. Although he was kicked out of the list and couldn't step into the three-flower realm on the list, he still had some skills. Fei Mo was from the Xingjian Hall, and he was best at various sword techniques. He was the most powerful when it came to sword techniques. His bright sword of light was powerful and heavy. It could be said to be an impeccable sword technique with no weaknesses, except for the large consumption of internal force. However, he was still a disciple from the Sword King's city. For disciples of big sects like them, the foundation was the most important. Fei Mo's internal force cultivation was also very strong. Coupled with the fact that he had stepped into the three-flower realm for several years, he could completely control this powerful sword technique. However, at this moment, under the endless brilliance, a black light bloomed. Like a flower blooming on the other side of hell, the blade slashed open the door to hell. Endless demonic aura and deathly will burst out. Chu Xiu slashed out the second blade of the Avicii Path's 3 blades. He had become very familiar with this blade after absorbing demonic aura into his body twice, and its power was even greater than before. Coupled with the fact that he had reached the three-flower realm, the explosive power was even more amazing. Under this blade, the light was instantly torn apart by the darkness, and the sound of the saber aura breaking through the wind seemed to be the roar of evil spirits. Everyone only heard a loud bang, and the sword momentum of the bright sword of light was instantly extinguished. Fei Mo's figure was directly blown away by Chu Xiu's powerful blade, smashing the wall of the Purple Cloud restaurant and falling on the street. There was a hint of coldness in Chu Xiu's eyes. He moved his body and chased after Fei Mo onto the street. When Han Kuei saw this, he wiped off the cold sweat on his forehead. He thought to himself that the two of them had finally left. They had only destroyed 1 floor and 1 wall. He was already lucky that they hadn't destroyed the entire Purple Cloud restaurant. At this moment, the people in the Purple Cloud restaurant saw this scene and immediately walked to the window to watch. The warriors on the street also immediately moved away, looking at Fei Mo with curious eyes. At this moment, Fei Mo could be said to be extremely miserable, completely lacking the domineering appearance he had before. His strength was considered strong among those in the three-flower realm, so he was not killed or seriously injured after taking the second of Chu Xiu's 3 blades of Avici. However, at this moment, he was not feeling good. Although the saber aura was blocked, the cold demonic chi saber will entered his body and stirred up the meridians in his body, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. Some of the warriors on the street recognized Fei Mo. After all, Sword King City's attire was very eye-catching. They were still wondering who was so strong that they could beat up a warrior from Sword God Mountain like this. On the other side, Chu Xiu directly jumped down from the 3rd floor. He held the Great UnparalleledSwordWill seal in his hand, and his eyes flashed with killing intent as he directly attacked Fei Mo. Previously in the Guanzhong torture room, Chu Xiu had saved Sword King City some face and did not go too far. However, who knew that Sword King City would not take the face he had given them this time? Since that was the case, they could not blame Chu Xiu for being ruthless. Previously, Mo Tianlin felt that Chu Xiu always wanted to go to the extreme when he attacked. In fact, his guess was right. This was Chu Xiu's style. He would either not do anything, or he would go to the extreme. Although he was cautious in his thinking, he was too indecisive. If one did not have the strength to go to the extreme, it was reckless. However, if one had the strength, it was decisive. This time, he came to the God Weapon Conference to represent the reputation and image of the Guanzhong torture room. The more power he made, the happier the Guanzhong torture room would be. This was because Chu Xiu was making the Guanzhong torture room proud. Now that he had crippled Fei Mo, it also meant that the Guanzhong torture room had crippled Fei Mo. When the people from Sword King City came looking for trouble, if Guan Xiyu did not help him, she would be slapping herself in the face. It would seriously affect the hearts of the people in the Guanzhong torture room. Chapter 238. Chu Xiu's Great UnparalleledSwordWill seal came crashing down with incomparably fierce power. The Buddha's light contained dense killing intent. The sword of light in Fei Mo's hand bloomed with even more intense and dazzling aura. However, under Chu Xiu's ferocious seal technique, it shattered with a loud bang. Fei Mo's sword momentum had always been majestic and oppressive. He didn't expect that he would one day be suppressed by a warrior who had just stepped into the three-flower realm. After a series of fierce attacks, Fei Mo retreated step by step. He couldn't resist Chu Xiu's violent offensive at all. However, Fei Mo was still tough. After all, he was an elite disciple from Sword King City. He was also once ranked on the Longhu list. Even if he was at a disadvantage now, he didn't admit defeat or beg for mercy. Perhaps he could tell from how ruthless Chu Xiu was when he attacked that Chu Xiu would definitely cripple or kill him this time. Of course, whether it was crippling or killing Fei Mo didn't make much difference. For warriors, especially those with status and level like Fei Mo, crippling him was even crueler than killing him. Lin Kaiyun was just taking things too hard. Once he pulled himself together, he would still be an outstanding disciple of the younger generation in Sword King City. However, if Fei Mo's martial arts were crippled, he would be crippled for the rest of his life. Now that Fei Mo had been forced into a desperate situation by Chu Xiu, he no longer hesitated. He directly spat out a mouthful of blood and attached the scorching power to his longsword. In an instant, his sword of light bloomed with a blood-red brilliance. And that wasn't the end of it. Blood light flowed in Fei Mo's hand as the power of qi and blood was continuously poured into his sword of light, causing the originally amber longsword to have the same material as the red sleeve blade in Chu Xiu's hand. With a furious roar, the blood-red longsword in Fei Mo's hand slashed down, and the blood-red sword aura exploded. Although it did not have the sharpness of the sword aura continued for several feet, bringing with it the afterglow of the blood-red setting sun. Although it seemed inconspicuous, it contained an extreme power. Fei Mo's attack, which was burning the power of his blood and qi, fell down. Like a scarlet setting sun, the aura qi contained a terrifying power. Even Chu Xiu's blood-refined god aura couldn't resist such a desperate move. Therefore, at this moment, Chu Xiu immediately used the internal binding seal and retreated. However, Fei Mo's move was not easy to dodge. No matter how fast a person was, they could not be faster than astral qi. Just as Chu Xiu retreated, Fei Mo shouted, "Go to hell." With a loud bang, Fei Mo poured all the power of qi and blood in his body into the Sword of Light. The Sword of Light shattered, and the scattered sword aura sealed the surrounding space with the sharp fragments of the Sword of Light, making it impossible for Chu Xiu to dodge or evade. The desperate attack of an expert at the peak of the Three-Flower Realm was still very scary. As an outstanding disciple of the previous generation of Sword King City, Fei Mo still had a trump card. At this moment, Fei Mo's face was pale. Even the precious weapon he had been nurturing for more than a decade, the Sword of Light, had been completely destroyed. Even if this move could seriously injure Chu Xiu, he would still suffer a great loss. However, at this moment, Fei Mo was shocked to find that Chu Xiu, who was surrounded by countless blood-red sword aura, had formed a seal with both hands. When he blasted out the seal, the space several feet around him was instantly suppressed by a powerful astral qi. Formation Formula, Wisdom Fist Seal. Each style of the fast 9 words formula had its own charm. If the Great Vajra seal was the ultimate power, and the internal binding seal was the ultimate speed, then the Wisdom Fist seal was the ultimate control of astral qi. The Wisdom Fist seal could cover the sky and cover all directions. This was actually a kind of ultimate control of astral qi, turning everything around into one's own astral qi domain. Although it was very small and could only last for a short time, it was enough for Chu Xiu to use it as a killing move. Therefore, when everyone thought that Chu Xiu would be seriously injured or even killed under the countless blood-red sword aura, Chu Xiu relied on the powerful might of the Wisdom Fist seal to freeze all the blood-red sword aura in midair. Although it was only for a short moment, the red sleeve blade in Chu Xiu's hand had already slashed out a sky full of blood-refined divine aura, shattering the sword aura wrapped around the fragments of the precious weapons one by one. His figure directly rushed out of the sword aura and slashed down with killing intent. Facing Chu Xiu's slash, the martial artists of Sword King City had lost 70% of their cultivation. Facing Chu Xiu's slash, Fei Mo, who was almost at the end of his rope, pointed with his sword finger. However, the light sword aura was easily shattered by Chu Xiu's blood-refined divine aura. Just when everyone thought that Fei Mo would definitely be killed by Chu Xiu's slash, Chu Xiu suddenly withdrew his saber. Some people who didn't know Chu Xiu nodded. It seemed that Chu Xiu still had some sense of propriety. He knew that killing Fei Mo would offend Sword King City, so he wouldn't go to the extreme. However, the martial artists who had seen Chu Xiu's attack in front of the Water Cloud Monastery were stunned. Would Chu Xiu stop? This wasn't his style. It must be known that Yan Tingting was Yan Huainan's most beloved daughter. When Chu Xiu attacked her, he didn't show the slightest mercy. If it weren't for the timely arrival of the martial institution's High Chancellor, Lord Xiao Baiyu, Yan Tingting would have been killed by Chu Xiu. Would he show mercy to Fei Mo now? No, this definitely wasn't Chu Xiu's style. At this moment, although Chu Xiu withdrew his saber halfway, he directly slammed his palm down. His palm glittered with a purplish-black evil radiance. The great purple sun hand shot out and accurately imprinted itself on Fei Mo's dantian. The power of the purple sun demonic flame instantly erupted and completely shattered Fei Mo's dantian. Moreover, this wasn't the end. Chu Xiu's hand grabbed Fei Mo's arm and used the great sacrificial grappling hand, instantly twisting Fei Mo's arm into a twisted dough twist. Fei Mo didn't even have time to scream before he fainted and was directly thrown to the ground by Chu Xiu. Fei Mo looked like a ragged doll, looking extremely miserable. Clapping his hands, Chu Xiu said lightly, I'm a very fair person. Since you didn't plan to kill me, then I'll spare your life. There aren't many people who can survive under my hands. When they witnessed this scene, the spectators instantly went deathly silent. They were wrong. Chu Xiu hadn't changed his character, and he'd gone from bad to worse and acted even more ruthlessly. Look at Fei Mo's current appearance, you might as well just kill him like this. For a cultivator, one's own strength and martial arts were everything. If one's martial arts were crippled, the feeling of falling from the clouds was simply worse than death. It was a double torture of the body and spirit. Moreover, even if one's martial arts were crippled, there was still a chance to cultivate it back. For example, there were some secret techniques in the pugilistic world that could be used to rebuild one's dantian. There were also some rare spirit medicines that could rebuild one's dantian and so on. But Chu Xiu's viciousness was that he had made double preparations. Not only did he shatter Fei Mo's dantian, but he also directly twisted Fei Mo's arms. If a swordsman couldn't even pick up his own sword, then what use was it even if he recovered his cultivation? Moreover, such heavy injuries required a shocking amount of rare spirit medicines. Even if he was the son of Sword King City's sect, Sword King City probably wouldn't pay such a huge price to save him. At this time, when the other disciples of Sword King City saw that their senior brother had been crippled by Chu Xiu, they revealed a wisp of disbelief. As an elite on the Longhu list of the previous generation, Fei Mo's reputation in Sword King City was almost as great as Lin Kaiyun's. It could be said that he was the idol of these young disciples who hadn't started to roam the pugilistic world. But in the end, their senior brother Fei Mo, whom they usually admired, was easily defeated and even crippled. This was something they couldn't accept no matter what. Senior brother. The Sword King City's disciples immediately rushed over and helped Fermo up before feeding him medicine. The other disciples unsheathed their swords and looked at Chu Xiu with bloodshot eyes. Although some of the disciples' swords were trembling, Chu Xiu didn't dare to attack Fermo. The quality of the disciples of Sword King City was really good. In the face of Chu Xiu, who had just crippled their senior brother, these disciples didn't choose to run away. They even dared to stand in front of him and draw their swords. Although everyone could see the fear in their hearts, none of them dared to run away or beg for mercy. This was the foundation of a great sect's disciple. Not only did they have cultivation methods and martial Dao inheritances, but they also had the unique spirit of a great sect's disciple. Although the cultivators of Sword King City were a bit overbearing, it was undeniable that as swordsmen, they would rather break than bend. Kneeling and begging for mercy in the face of a powerful enemy, people without the slightest backbone weren't worthy of being called swordsmen. At this time, Mo Tianlin and Xia Shaolu also arrived at Chu Xiu's side. Mo Tianlin said in a soft voice, "Brother Chu, forget it. Don't go too far. Let them go." Mo Tianlin wasn't really a kind person, but there were some unspoken rules in the Jianghu. Unless it was the kind of enmity that could destroy a family or sect, both sides generally wouldn't attack a young disciple who hadn't officially stepped into the Jianghu. He did this to remind Chu Xiu not to break the rules. Chu Xiu nodded indifferently and said, "They're just a bunch of juniors who can't even hold their swords properly. I didn't intend to kill them. Let them carry that guy back to Sword King City to report." Mo Tianlin breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Chu Xiu wasn't as crazy as he was last time. But just as Chu Xiu and the others turned to leave, a figure suddenly appeared behind one of the Sword King City's disciples. That disciple didn't notice it at all. Then, the figure reached into the man's back with one hand and dug out the man's heart. Still holding the beating heart in his hand, the figure smiled strangely and said, "Sword King City's cultivators are full of vitality. This heart is a great tonic. Wouldn't it be a pity to let it go? If you don't want it, give it to me." Chapter 239. No one had expected this to happen. Even Chu Xiu didn't know when this person had appeared. The figure that suddenly dug out the heart wore black clothes and was around the age of 20. He had a handsome appearance and a rather thin figure, but his eyes were a strange blood-red color while his face carried a wisp of an evil smile at all times. Especially when he was holding a heart that was covered in blood at this moment, he simply seemed even more like a madman than Chu Xiu who'd slaughtered his way through Water Cloud Temple. The crowd suddenly went silent. Then, someone shouted, "It's him. Heart Hunter, Tong Kai-tai." As soon as this statement came out, the crowd suddenly went into an uproar. In terms of fame, this person was much more famous than Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu's leap from a penniless rogue cultivator to the 18th place on the Longhu list was already amazing enough, but Tong Kai-tai's achievement was even more amazing than Chu Xiu's. He had directly risen from a demonic path rogue cultivator to the 13th place on the Longhu list. What made Tong Kai-tai famous in the martial world was that he had killed an elite disciple of Longhu Mountain Celestial Master Mansion. Moreover, he had even killed that disciple and dug out his heart. In the end, Longhu Mountain had been enraged and had sent many experts to hunt him down. However, Tong Kai-tai had still managed to escape. Tong Kai-tai hadn't shown himself in the past 2 years. Everyone thought that he was still hiding in the West Chu Barren Mountains, not daring to come out. Who would have thought that he would swagger here and even kill a Sword King City cultivator in front of everyone? The other Sword King City cultivators immediately retreated after Tong Kai-tai killed a person. Their hands that were holding their swords trembled even more violently. When they heard Chu Xiu say that he would let them off this time, they felt as if they had been given a new lease of life and instantly felt relieved. Who would have thought that before they could even relax, another evil wolf would appear? In terms of fierce reputation, Tong Kai-tai was even more famous than Chu Xiu in the martial world. "Do you have enmity with the people of Sword King City?" Chu Xiu suddenly asked as he looked at Tong Kai-tai. Tong Kai-tai grinned and said, "No, I only have a grudge against the Daoist Master Mansion's ox nose. However, I have always wanted to taste the taste of a swordsman's heart. It just so happens that you don't want to kill them, so I will help you kill them." After saying that, Tong Kai-tai's hands suddenly blossomed with a blood-red light. The heart began to shrink rapidly in the blood-red light. In the end, it directly turned into powder and scattered on the ground. Tong Kai-tai's face was a little flushed. He even closed his eyes as if he was enjoying it. TSK, the taste of a swordsman's heart is pretty good. Too bad that guy in the three-flower realm was crippled by you. It's better to be fresh if you want to win someone's heart. Everyone present felt a chill down their spines when they saw this. In the past, there was a widespread rumor in Jianghu that Tong Kai-tai liked to eat people's hearts. Now it seemed that this rumor was false, but it was also half true. Although Tong Kai-tai did not eat human flesh, he had obviously cultivated some kind of secret technique that allowed him to devour the qi and blood in the heart to increase his strength. Demonic techniques had always been rejected by people in Jianghu. What they hated was Tong Kai-tai's secret technique, which was considered extremely evil even among demonic techniques. Looking at Tong Kai-tai, Chu Xiu suddenly said coldly, "I was the one who let these people go. What if I don't let you kill them?" Of course, Chu Xiu was not kind enough to help the people of Sword King City. However, he did not want to take the blame for Tong Kai-tai. He had just crippled Fei Mo, and now Tong Kai-tai had killed everyone from Sword King City. According to the people of Sword King City, they would definitely blame him for this. It did not matter if Sword King City held a grudge against him. After all, Chu Xiu had already offended the people of Sword King City. However, Chu Xiu did not want to take the blame for some random guy. He could kill these people, but he couldn't kill the others. The smile on Tong Kai-tai's face gradually disappeared. He narrowed his eyes and said, "You won't let me kill them? You already crippled their elite disciples. Do you think Sword King City will not hold a grudge against you if you don't kill these people?" Chu Xiu took a step forward and said faintly, whether Sword King City hates me or not is my business. I can kill these people, but you can't. Tong Kaitai, you and I mind our own business. If you want to kill people, do it at another time. I don't care, but don't cause trouble in front of me. Tong Kaitai was more of a madman than Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu was very normal most of the time, but Tong Kaitai was intermittently crazy. If Tong Kaitai had acted in secret, then not to mention Sword King City's people, Chu Xiu would not have cared who he killed. But now, Tong Kaitai wanted to kill people after Chu Xiu had acted. This was obviously to provoke Chu Xiu. It was commonly known as causing trouble after eating too much. If such a person was not crazy, then what was? Hearing Chu Xiu's words, Tong Kaitai grinned again. What if I insist on killing? You want to stop me? I've only been in the Ji province for a few days. I heard that you're very famous. Everyone says that you're the most likely to win the God Armament Convention. I'm not interested in the God Armament Convention, but I've recently joined the Omniscient sect. Those old fogies want me to help them make some noise. It just so happens that you're famous. If I dig out your heart, do you think I'll be more famous than you? Hearing this, everyone immediately understood what was going on. This guy was really looking for trouble. Or it could be said that Chu Xiu had recently become a big tree that attracted the wind. If Chu Xiu was still as unknown as before, then Fei Mo and the other Sword King City's disciples wouldn't have heard of Chu Xiu's name. Naturally, they wouldn't have thought of looking for trouble with Chu Xiu. Now, Tong Kaitai was the same. Looking at his appearance, it was obvious that he was looking for trouble for the sake of his reputation. However, everyone was puzzled. When did Tong Kaitai join the Omniscient sect? The Omniscient sect was one of the 7 sects and 8 schools. It belonged to the Devil Path and was located in the northern Yan's northern plains. But Tong Kaitai was from West Chu. No one had heard of him appearing in the northern Yan. How did he collude with the Omniscient sect? Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes as he looked at Tong Kaitai. It turned out that the other party's mission was the same as his. He also wanted to use this opportunity to show off his sect's might. However, the Omniscient sect was even more low-key than the Guanzhong torture room. As a former Devil Path sect, the Omniscient sect was once a subordinate sect of the Kunlun Devil cult. So after the Kunlun Devil cult suffered heavy losses, the Omniscient sect became incomparably low-key. It had been a long time since they caused any trouble in the world. Unfortunately, the Omniscient sect seemed to have picked the wrong person. This Tong Kaitai's brain was obviously abnormal. Did the Omniscient sect send him to show off their might or to offend others? Chu Xiu stepped forward and lightly said, "You want to dig out my heart? If you have the strength, you can come and try." "That's what you said." Tong Kaitai laughed strangely. There was no killing intent in his eyes, but his figure instantly turned into a black shadow and rushed toward Chu Xiu. His speed was so fast that it was even close to Chu Xiu's internal binding seal. Tong Kaitai stretched out his 5 fingers, and black gang energy wrapped around his arm like a blade. There was no gang energy released, but when the claw fell, a powerful sonic boom could be heard. Chu Xiu's figure did not move, and the red sleeve blade in his hand suddenly slashed down. In an instant, the sky was filled with blade shadows that fell one after another with the power of the blood-refined divine shield. As the blade light flew, there was a magnificent killing intent. However, the blade aura that was filled with bloody chi was crushed by Tong Kaitai one by one. And at this moment, the black gang energy in Tong Kaitai's hand suddenly erupted with a touch of blood. With an evil aura, it directly grabbed toward Chu Xiu's chest, shattering all the protective gang energy. "It's the Azura hand," some of the onlookers whispered. Tong Kaitai's martial arts technique was very famous, not because it was powerful, but because Tong Kaitai had used his Azura hand to crush the hearts of several experts of the Celestial Master Mansion. And then they suddenly realized that Chu Xiu was already in the three-flower realm. The strength that Tong Kaitai showed was not inferior to Chu Xiu at all. He had also reached the three-flower realm. At this time, in the field, in the face of Tong Kaitai's strange and powerful Azura hand, Chu Xiu held the great UnparalleledSwordWill seal in his hand. In an instant, a dazzling Buddha light bloomed. A burst of gang energy exploded. Tong Kaitai's Azura hand was also no match for the powerful power of Chu Xiu's great UnparalleledSwordWill seal. Moreover, Buddhist techniques had a certain restraining effect on his martial arts. A glimmer of light appeared in Tong Kaitai's eyes, but before he could react, Chu Xiu directly pressed forward, turning the tables on him. His hand formed the lion seal, and as the finger seal knocked, a thunderous explosion with a majestic Buddhist sound was heard. It suddenly caused Tong Kaitai's body to tremble, and the smile on his face disappeared. He was shocked by this thunderous sound of Buddhist sound. The fist seal fell again, and the fierce and overbearing power of the great UnparalleledSwordWill seal was displayed to the extreme by Chu Xiu. It was simply pressing down on Tong Kaitai. Although Tong Kaitai had only used one move, Chu Xiu could tell that Tong Kaitai was proficient in the standard demonic path. It was sinister and strange. Although it was powerful, it would still be restrained by Buddhist techniques. At this time, the fist seal in Chu Xiu's hand suddenly changed. The great UnparalleledSwordWill seal abruptly changed into the great purple sun hand in midair. The switch between good and evil demonstrated Chu Xiu's proficient control of his own martial arts, inner force, and spiritual qi. Tong Kaitai was caught off guard, and Chu Xiu's palm directly hit his right arm. In an instant, the purple sun demonic flame entered his body, causing him to groan. With one step, Tong Kaitai's figure rapidly retreated. He fiercely swung his hand, and a wave of black-hot gang qi was flung out. When it hit the ground, it actually burned a hole. Looking at Chu Xiu, Tong Kaitai smiled coldly and said, "A man with a great reputation does not live up to his name. I can't dig your heart away for now, but don't worry, one day it will be mine. I can feel that there is something in your heart that is very attractive to me. It is very powerful, and also very delicious." As soon as he finished speaking, Tong Kaitai directly turned around and left. His figure flashed and disappeared without a trace. However, Chu Xiu looked at Tong Kaitai's back, and a cold killing intent appeared in his eyes. Chapter 240. Tong Kaitai, the human demon hunter, loved to dig people's hearts after killing them. In the past, other people in the Jianghu thought that Tong Kaitai had a perverted fetish for human flesh. Now, everyone knew that it was just a secret technique he cultivated. What Tong Kaitai said just now was just Tong Kaitai going crazy in the ears of others, but in Chu Xiu's ears, it was like thunder. Not only was Tong Kaitai interested in the human heart, but he also had a strange feeling about it. He said that Chu Xiu's heart was very attractive to him, and he was talking about the glazed golden silk goo. Chu Xiu was sure that Tong Kaitai did not know about the existence of the glazed golden silk goo, but he was the first person to notice the abnormality in Chu Xiu's heart. The glazed golden silk goo was a big secret of Chu Xiu. Once it was discovered by others, as the owner of the glazed golden silk goo, would the moon-worshipping church let him go? As the owner of the glazed golden silk goo, would the Great Light Temple let him go? As for the second prince of Eastern Qi, he had always wanted the glazed golden silk goo. Would he let Chu Xiu go? This was a secret that Chu Xiu absolutely could not let outsiders know. Even if Tong Kaitai only felt that something was wrong, Chu Xiu had to kill this doubt completely. As for how to kill it, there was no need to say more. Mo Tianlin did not notice Chu Xiu's abnormality. He just shook his head and sighed. What's going on with this God Weapon Conference? Why are there so many monsters and monsters? Even Tong Kaitai, that madman, swaggered out. Previously, Mo Tianlin thought that this God Weapon Conference would be very simple. the top 10 on the Longhu list would not come, and he had a certain chance of winning the god weapon. But now, Xia Xiaolu came to join in the fun, Luo Feiheng came to stir up trouble, and Chu Xiu came as a dark horse. Now, even Tong Kaitai, a demonic martial artist who had stepped into the three-flower realm at one's prominence, had come. His cultivation was somewhat lacking. Chu Xiu said faintly, "It's not bad to have some liveliness. I like it." Mo Tianlin slapped his head and said, "I forgot, your goal for participating in the God Weapon Conference is the same as that Tong Kaitai, you are here to make a name for your sect. However, even if you withdraw from the God Weapon Conference, you have already earned enough reputation. I just don't know if Hall Master Guan of the Guanzhong torture room will reward or punish you after this. After all, you have offended more than one person this time." Chu Xiu said indifferently, "This isn't something I should worry about. In any case, it was Hall Master Guan who specifically asked me to come here. He knows my personality, so I reckon he should be mentally prepared." Mo Tianlin was slightly speechless. If Guan Siyu knew what Chu Xiu was thinking, she would probably be half dead with anger. After all, no sect leader would like such a troublemaking disciple. At this time, on top of a tall building not far from the Purple Cloud restaurant, Mr. Lu, who had worked with Jianghu Yuan before, stood on the roof. His eyes flickered with an unknown light. Next to him was a martial artist covered in a black cloak. He asked in a low voice, "Uncle, Tong Kaitai actually came to the God Weapon Conference as a member of the evil sect. Could it be that the people of the evil sect also heard something? Could it be that there is a traitor among us who tipped off the evil sect? Do we need to change the plan?" When Mr. Lu heard this, he coldly snorted and said, "Even if someone tipped off the evil sect, they would not dare to ruin our plans. The evil sect is just a group of vile people who see the wind and set the helm. In the past, when our demonic sect was in danger, the evil sect was the first to run away. They relied on the large righteous sects to admit defeat. That is how they managed to survive until now. These past few years, the evil sect has not made any moves. This time, the disciple they sent is actually a rising star of the demonic path. The evil sect should not know of our plan, and it is also impossible for them to know of it. So this Tong Kaitai is most likely here to make his presence known. Ignore him and continue with the plan." That martial artist nodded, and his figure strangely blended into the surrounding environment. It was as if he had disappeared into thin air. It was extremely strange. After the Violet Cloud restaurant was destroyed, no one was in the mood to drink anymore. The God Weapon Convention was going to start in a few days. During this period of time, Chu Xiu and the others were all resting in seclusion in the inn. They had rested and adjusted their spirit to the peak before they came to prepare for the God Weapon Convention. 5 days later, the Mirror Lake Villa finally announced the opening. Tens of thousands of martial artists in the Ji State Prefecture all rushed into the Mirror Lake Villa. Of course, most of them went to watch the show. Those who really had the courage to participate in the God Weapon Conference and fight in the arena were estimated to be less than 1 in 10. The Mirror Lake Villa had already opened. There were more than 10 disciples of the Mo family and the Hidden Sword Villa in front of the gate to maintain order. After all, there were too many people, and there were even some martial artists who did not show up before. They were all people of the Jianghu, and it was normal for there to be some grudges between them. Therefore, some people even wanted to fight in front of the Mirror Lake Villa, but they were stopped by the people of the Mirror Lake Villa and the Hidden Sword Villa. At this time, at the gate, a middle-aged martial artist of the Mo family looked at the people rushing into the Mo family. He said to a middle-aged martial artist with 2 swords on his back, "Brother Cheng, the power of this God Weapon Conference is a little too big, isn't it? We didn't expect so many people to come." The martial artist with 2 swords on his back was from the Hidden Sword Villa. Hearing this, he did not care and said, "What are you afraid of? The more people come, the better. Otherwise, How can we guarantee that the god weapon will be produced smoothly? The martial artist of the Mo family shook his head. Anyway, this matter was led by the hidden sword villa. The bigger the momentum, the greater the reputation of the hidden sword villa. However, the Mo family had never had the experience of entertaining so many people. These warriors were the outstanding figures of the younger generation of the Jianghu. Each of them was arrogant and conceited. They were very rebellious. It was extremely difficult to make them behave. However, the conference had already begun, so he could not drive people out. He could only call out all the disciples of the Mirror Lake Villa to maintain order. At this time, Chu Xiu, Mo Tianlin, and Xia Xiaolu did not squeeze into the Mirror Lake Villa with the other people. With their identity and status, the Mirror Lake Villa would naturally arrange a good seat for them. This was the reality of the Jianghu. Although everyone was a young martial artist, Chu Xiu and the others had their own forces behind them. Moreover, they were all elites of the Dragon and Tiger list, so their seats were naturally in the front. On the other hand, some of the less famous martial artists did not even have a place to sit, they could only stand at the back. When almost everyone had entered, Chu Xiu and Xia Xiaolu were ready to enter the Mirror Lake Villa. However, Chu Xiu suddenly asked, "Brother Mo, is there any relationship between the Mo family of the Mirror Lake Villa and the Mo family of Xiangyang?" The Mo family of Eastern Qi was one of the 9 great families, so their reputation was not small. On the other hand, the Mo family of the Mirror Lake Villa was only famous because of the previous master of the Divine Weapon Pavilion, Mo Yizi. However, both of them were in Eastern Qi, so it was easy to associate them together. Mo Tianlin touched his nose and said awkwardly, "There is a bit of a relationship. In terms of bloodline, Master Mo Yizi is actually a branch of the Mo family, and a very remote branch at that. You should know the rules of the big families. It is very realistic. If the branch is strong, the resources they can obtain are second only to the direct descendants. However, if they are not strong enough, then Brother Chu should know the result." Therefore, Master Mo Yizi's branch left the Mo family a few hundred years ago. In fact, they have no relationship with the Mo family of Xiangyang now. Chu Xiu nodded. If that was the case, the Mo family of Xiangyang was not wrong. After all, the Mo family of Xiangyang was one of the 9 great families, so they certainly followed the law of survival of the fittest. Only the branch with strength could be the disciples of the Mo family. Without strength, naturally, they could not obtain anything. However, who would have thought that a branch with weak strength in the past would give birth to Mo Yizi, a master of Divine Weapon Pavilion after a few hundred years? Although the strength of a master of Divine Weapon Pavilion was definitely not as strong as a martial arts grandmaster, his status was higher than that of a martial arts grandmaster, especially when Mo Yizi eventually became the master of the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Seeing Mo Tianlin's awkward expression, the Mo family had most likely tried to recruit Mo Yizi and wanted him to return to the family, but in the end, Mo Yizi refused. After entering the Mirror Lake Villa, Chu Xiu and the others did not have time to admire the surrounding scenery. There were simply too many people around. At this time, a disciple of the Mo family of the Mirror Lake Villa came over and bowed to Chu Xiu and the others. He said, "Everyone's seats are in front. Please follow me." Chu Xiu and the others followed the disciple to the front. At this time, the Mo family of the Mirror Lake Villa had already built 5 arenas. The northern seats were for the people of the Mirror Lake Villa and the Hidden Sword Villa, while the other 3 were for the martial artists who came to participate in the Divine Weapon Conference. Chu Xiu and the others sat in the front row. However, when they came to the front row, Chu Xiu found that Luo Feiheng was already sitting there with his legs crossed, leisurely drinking tea. There was even a small table beside his seat, filled with dried fruits and snacks. It really looked like he was here to watch a show. Mo Tianlin was surprised and said, "When did you go in? How come we didn't see you?" Luo Feiheng said lazily, "I came last night." Was the Mirror Lake Villa open last night? Mo Tianlin asked curiously. Luo Feiheng threw a few fruits to Chu Xiu and the others and said, "Who said that I can't come in if it's not open? Grandmaster Mo Yi admires me a lot. Can't I come a day earlier to chat with him?" Hearing this, everyone was speechless. They just remembered that the red kite in Luo Feiheng's hands was personally made by Mo Yi. She really had some preferential treatment in the Mirror Lake Villa. Chapter 241. Although Mo Yezi was a weapon refining great grandmaster and was once the pavilion master of the Divine Weapon Pavilion, his temper was also famous for being eccentric. However, if anyone could obtain a weapon that he had personally forged, then Mo Yezi's attitude towards this person would also change. According to Mo Yezi, being able to see a precious weapon forged by him transform into a divine weapon was even more fulfilling than having him forge a divine weapon himself. After Chu Xiu and the others took their seats, there were also many people outside who were led to the front row by the disciples of the Mirror Lake Villa. Those who were arranged to the front row were almost all warriors from major sections. They were famous figures on the Longhu leaderboard, such as Bai Wuji. However, after witnessing the strength of Chu Xiu's three-flower realm, Bai Wuji completely gave up on competing with Chu Xiu. He had no confidence in facing Chu Xiu when they were in the same realm. Now that there was an entire realm difference between him and Chu Xiu, how could he fight against Chu Xiu? Therefore, after seeing Chu Xiu, his expression also turned cold, but he did not say anything. Opposite of Chu Xiu, Tong Kaitai was also brought in. After seeing Chu Xiu, he showed a strange smile to Chu Xiu, but he did not cause any trouble. Although he was a little crazy, he was not a real idiot. The evil Pole sect did not have any enmity with the Hidden Sword Villa. Coupled with his ranking on the Longhu leaderboard, even if he was from the demonic path, he was still treated the same as the other elites on the Longhu leaderboard. However, most of the warriors present were from the righteous path. There were many who did not like the demonic path warriors. If he caused trouble here, it would be troublesome if he incurred the wrath of the crowd. After a while, suddenly there was a commotion outside. Everyone was exclaiming and muttering about something, and the crowd could not help but part. After seeing who it was, Mo Tianlin's expression immediately darkened. He said coldly, "Why is he here?" The person who parted the crowd was a young man in his 20s. He seemed to be slightly older than Mo Tianlin, and he wore a bright yellow brocade robe and a white jade crown. His face was handsome and he gave off an extremely powerful aura. It was obvious that he was not an ordinary person at first glance. Most importantly, Chu Xiu could sense a very familiar aura from him. It was the same aura that belonged to a three-flower realm martial artist. "Who is this person?" Chu Xiu asked in a low voice. Mo Tianlin clenched his teeth and said nothing. Xia Shaolu explained from the side, the number 1 of the younger generation of the Xiahou clan of Nansang, ranked 10th on the Longhu leaderboard, Divine Prince Xiahou Wujiang. He's a very annoying guy, but he's also a genius. He's the only one who has successfully cultivated the divine control technique of the Xiahou clan of Nansang before reaching the three-flower realm. Some time ago, I heard that he went into seclusion to break through to the three-flower realm. How did he come out so soon? The people of the Xiahou clan are not good at using weapons. What use is a divine weapon to him? Chu Xiu said in a low voice, "He's already in the three-flower realm. Does Brother Mo have a grudge against him?" Xia Shaolu glanced at Mo Tianlin. There was no need to hide this kind of thing, so he simply said, Mo Tianlin was once defeated by this guy and was humiliated by him. The Xiahou clan also suppressed the Mo clan, so there's a lot of hatred between them. Chu Xiu nodded in understanding. No wonder Mo Tianlin had such a look on his face. The land of Eastern Qi had a long history. Half of the 9 major clans were in Eastern Qi. After so many years of friction, it was normal for there to be hatred. Originally, everyone thought that no one in the top 10 of the Longhu leaderboard would come to the God Weapon Conference. They didn't expect Xiahou Wujiang to appear just as it was about to start. Moreover, there were many people who found out that he had stepped into the Three-Flower Realm. At the thought of this, everyone subconsciously looked at Chu Xiu, thinking that the dark horse Chu Xiu was a bit unlucky. Originally, Chu Xiu had stepped into the Three-Flower Realm after experiencing the battle of 1 against 100. Everyone thought that he would have the highest chance of winning in this God Weapon Conference. As a result, as soon as Chu Xiu showed his strength, he ran into Tong Kaitai, who was also in the Three-Flower Realm. And it wasn't over yet. The conference was about to start, and Xiahou Wujiang unexpectedly appeared again. It should be known that this person was more famous than Chu Xiu. The Nansang Xiahou family's imperial spirit technique was also famous in the martial world. Xiahou Wujiang had defeated more than one Three-Flower Realm warrior when he was in the physical invulnerability realm. His record was definitely more glorious than Chu Xiu's, but he didn't kill as many people as Chu Xiu. Originally, Xiahou Wujiang was taken to the other side, but after seeing Chu Xiu's group, he went straight to Chu Xiu's side. Seeing Xiahou Wujiang's action, Mo Tianlin's face suddenly showed a touch of anger. He was a very good-tempered person, and the elders of the Mo family had also taught him to control his anger and control his emotions at all times. But now that he had encountered Xiahou Wujiang, he could no longer suppress his anger. Generally speaking, the heirs of large sects at the level of Mo Tianlin would give each other some face even though there would be friction and conflict between them. However, when Xiahou Wujiang rose, it happened to be when the Xiahou family suppressed the Mo family the most. Therefore, after Mo Tianlin lost to Xiahou Wujiang in the past, he was humiliated in every way possible and lost all face. This matter even spread in the land of Eastern Qi for more than half a year, making Mo Tianlin unable to take a step out of the Mo family for half a year. This matter would definitely be remembered by Mo Tianlin for the rest of his life. At this time, seeing Xiahou Wujiang coming, Mo Tianlin suddenly stood up, looked at Xiahou Wujiang with red eyes, and said coldly, "Xiahou Wujiang, this is the God Weapon Conference, not a place where you can cause trouble. Don't think that you can be so arrogant just because you've stepped into the Three-Flower Realm. I haven't forgotten that battle back then. When I step into the Three-Flower Realm in the future, we will definitely fight again." Facing the angry Mo Tianlin, at this time, it was as if Xiahou Wujiang did not see him at all. He directly walked past him and said to Luo Feiheng with a gentle smile on his face, "Little sister of the Luo family, why are you here? Do you also want this god weapon? Anyway, I'm not very good at using weapons. After I get this god weapon, I'll give it to you, little sister. A treasured sword should be given to a hero, and this god weapon should naturally be given to a beauty." At this time, Mo Tianlin's face had already become red, so much so that it seemed as if it was about to drip blood. Xiahou Wujiang's actions were simply extremely insulting. He was still aggressively challenging Xiahou Wujiang, but in the end, Xiahou Wujiang did not come for him at all. In fact, he did not even pay attention to him, and in front of so many people, this kind of thing was indeed insulting. After seeing this scene, Chu Xiu, who was at the side, had a somewhat strange expression. Even an idiot could see that Xiahou Wujiang was interested in Luo Feiheng. In the original plot, the Luo family encountered a great change, and they were prepared to unite by marriage with the Xiahou family. Chu Xiu did not know who Luo Feiheng was going to marry, but with Luo Feiheng's strength and identity, the one who had the strength to marry her was definitely Xiahou Wujiang. However, Chu Xiu did not expect that Xiahou Wujiang would be interested in Luo Feiheng so early on. In fact, Xiahou Wujiang was not interested in Luo Feiheng now, but a long time ago. When he first saw Luo Feiheng, he was already interested in Luo Feiheng. Xiahou Wujiang was an extremely arrogant and conceited person. How could he be interested in ordinary women? Only a good-for-nothing like Tianlin, who only knew how to mourn the autumn wind and moon, would like a woman with a delicate and gentle figure. A man like him should naturally subdue Luo Feiheng, who had a similarly tough and unruly temperament. In the past, when he fought with Tianlin and defeated him, he humiliated him. It was not only because the Xiahou family was suppressing the Mo family at that time, but also because the Mo family had the intention of matchmaking Tianlin and Luo Feiheng. Therefore, Xiahou Wujiang went overboard. Luo Feiheng looked at Xiahou Wujiang and frowned with some displeasure. "Who is your sister? If you want to find a sister, go to the Xiaoxiang restaurant of Phoenix Cry. Do you need me to introduce you to a few with big breasts and thin waists?" Xiahou Wujiang smiled and said, "Little sister, you must be joking. How can those common rouge and powder compare to you? Our families have been friends for generations. Shouldn't I call you little sister? Some time ago, I met Uncle Luo, and he told me to take good care of you if I see you." Luo Feiheng waved his hand impatiently and said, "Who needs your care? Get lost, get lost." If other women dared to speak to him like this, Xiahou Wujiang would have long been angry. However, when Luo Feiheng said this, Xiahou Wujiang just smiled and took Luo Feiheng's impatience as coquettishness. Tianlin shouted from the side, "Xiahou Wujiang, this is not a place for you to stay. Feiheng told you to get lost, did you hear him?" Hearing Tianlin's angry shout, Xiahou Wujiang turned his gaze to Tianlin. The smile on his face gradually disappeared, and an imposing aura emerged from his body. It was definitely stronger than Tianlin's. Tianlin, a loser like you dares to bark at me here. I didn't lower myself to your level, but you became even worse, didn't you? Also, are you qualified to call me Feiheng? Next time, stay away from little sister Luo, or else don't blame me for not giving face to your Mo family. Xiahou Wujiang's eyes revealed a touch of coldness as he said, "There are many in the younger generation of your Mo family who want to replace your position. Believe it or not, even if I cripple you right now, your Mo family will not do anything to me. On the contrary, there will be people thanking me." Xiahou Wujiang's words provoked Tianlin, and the anger in his heart erupted. However, what he said was the truth. In fact, the Mo family's main focus at the beginning was not Tianlin, but other people. However, because Tianlin had been frustrated in love, he had advanced by leaps and bounds, far surpassing other martial artists of the same generation. Because of this, the Mo family had focused on nurturing him. There were many people in the Mo family who were eyeing his position. Now that Xiahou Wujiang had pointed this out in front of him, as well as Xiahou Wujiang's disdain and humiliation, the usually calm and peaceful Tianlin could no longer endure it. An ink-colored, slender sword was already grasped in his hand. Chapter 242. Tianlin's personality was actually very good. He treated people peacefully and generously, and he also had the elegance and politeness of someone born in an aristocratic family. Even when facing ordinary servants, he had never reprimanded them or lost his temper. But even a man made of clay had a temper. Being humiliated and threatened by his former enemy, if Tianlin still did not lose his temper, then either he was extremely scheming and could endure the humiliation, or he was really too useless. At this time, seeing Tianlin draw his sword, the corner of Xiahou Wujiang's mouth revealed a disdainful smile. He had been waiting for this moment. Although Xiahou Wujiang was arrogant and conceited, he was not stupid. This was the God Weapon Convention jointly organized by the Mirror Lake Villa and the Hidden Sword Villa. If he made the first move, it was equivalent to offending the Hidden Sword Villa and Master Mo Yezi. Therefore, at this time, he deliberately provoked Tianlin, letting him draw his sword first, so that he would have a reason to make a move. Just as the long sword in Tianlin's hand had just been unsheathed and was stained with a little gang qi, Xiahou Wujiang had already moved. His body did not move, but a bright divine light flashed in his eyes. An invisible halo instantly enveloped Mo Tianlin, unexpectedly causing the Gang Qi that Mo Tianlin had begun to condense to dissipate forcibly, which made Mo Tianlin suddenly let out a muffled groan. The Xiahou clan's imperial spirit technique was famous in Jianghu, and in fact, the imperial spirit technique was an extremely profound primordial spirit secret technique. In Jianghu, there were all kinds of mystical and secret techniques, but the most mystical, or perhaps the most bizarre, was the primordial spirit secret technique that cultivated mental strength. For example, Chu Xiu's great technique of extinguishing the heavens and destroying the earth and soul shifting, the Ghost King sect's ghost secret technique, and the Xiahou clan's imperial spirit technique all belonged to the category of primordial spirit secret techniques, but they focused on different directions. Chu Xiu's great art of extinguishing the sky and extinguishing the earth and soul shifting focused on the cultivation of one's spiritual force. Although one could barely use it in the Xiantian realm, the effect was not strong in the early stage. It could only be used on weaker martial artists, and it could only affect martial artists at the same level. Only after reaching the advanced stage would it have the power of soul-shifting magic. Of course, now that Chu Xiu had reached the three-flower realm, his essence, qi, and spirit had become one. His mental strength had also greatly increased, and his cultivation of the soul-shifting technique had also greatly increased. On the other hand, the Ghost King sect's ghost secret technique was more inclined to materialize one's own primordial spirit. It was very extreme, and one needed to be in the three-flower realm to get started. As for the Xiahou clan's spirit control art, it was an extremely complete set of primordial spirit cultivation techniques. It had a foundation and was both offensive and defensive. The Xiahou clan's spirit control art began to train one's mental strength in the early stage of martial artists. After successfully cultivating it, the spirit control art could even control the other party's mind, just like controlling a puppet. In this regard, the spirit control art was even more domineering than the soul-shifting technique. Furthermore, the imperial spirit art also had a whole set of martial techniques related to the primordial spirit that could be used. Combined with the imperial spirit art itself, its might was much stronger than the heaven-extinguishing earth soul-shifting technique, which was only a part of the heaven and earth yin-yang great sorrow poem. In the past, when Mo Tianlin fought with Xiahou Wujiang, both of them were still in the physical invulnerability realm, but he was defeated by Xiahou Wujiang's spirit control art. Logically speaking, the Xiahou clan's spirit control art could only display its true combat power when one reached the three-flower realm at one's prominence. However, Xiahou Wujiang was indeed a genius. He was born with incomparably strong mental strength. When he was in the physical invulnerability realm, his own mental strength was even stronger than some of the Xiahou clan's three-flower realm at one's prominence. Therefore, the spirit control art could naturally display its greatest power in his hands. Now that Xiahou Wujiang had stepped into the three-flower realm at one's prominence, with his mental strength coupled with the terrifying power of the spirit control art, he could even make Mo Tianlin commit suicide on the spot, let alone make his spiritual qi backfire. At this time, Mo Tianlin was sweating profusely. When faced with a primordial spirit secret technique like the spirit control art, there was basically no other way but to use their own will to resist it. Xiahou Wujiang's mouth had a hint of a malicious smile. He would not let Mo Tianlin really commit suicide. After all, the other party was also an outstanding disciple of the Mo clan's younger generation. Although the Xiahou clan was not afraid of the Mo clan, killing him would still be troublesome. However, it was still possible to humiliate Mo Tianlin in front of everyone. With a clang, the long sword in Mo Tianlin's hand fell to the ground. He actually reached out a hand and directly slapped himself in the face, wanting to slap himself. Xia Xiaolu's expression darkened on the side. Mo Tianlin was a good friend of his for several years. Xiahou Wujiang had attacked him in public, which meant that he did not take him seriously at all. Luo Feiheng also frowned. She did not have a good impression of Xiahou Wujiang, not to mention that he was still pursuing her disgustingly. Now that Xiahou Wujiang had gone so far and controlled Mo Tianlin to slap himself in the face in front of everyone, he was simply ready to destroy Mo Tianlin and damage his state of mind. However, before Luo Feiheng and Xia Xiaolu could make a move, Xiahou Wujiang let out a soft snort. It was a very strange syllable, and it did not even seem like a sound that could be made from the throat. However, it was this soft snort that caused Luo Feiheng and Xia Xiaolu to tremble. Their movements paused for a moment, but it was this slight pause that caused them to be one step too late. They could only watch as Mo Tianlin's slap was coming towards them. However, at this moment, a deafening Buddhist sound suddenly rang out. Chu Xiu did not move from his original position. He formed the external lion seal with his hand, and it was like a sudden shout that completely awakened Mo Tianlin, causing him to immediately stop his movements and retreat. Cold sweat continuously flowed down from his forehead. This external lion seal sounded like the roar of Vajra in Xiahou Wujiang's ears, shocking his mind. It actually made him let out a muffled snort, and the spirit-driving technique was directly interrupted. Mo Tianlin wiped the cold sweat from his head and looked at Chu Xiu with a hint of gratitude in his eyes. In the past, he had chosen to befriend Chu Xiu and help him at a critical moment, and it was truly the right decision. Today, Chu Xiu had also helped him once. If this slap of his fell, not only would the warriors of Eastern Qi see it, but also the warriors of West Chu and Northern Yan would also see it. He would lose a lot of face, and even his reputation would be ruined. Mo Tianlin himself did not expect Xiahou Wujiang, who had stepped into the three-flower realm at one's prominence, to be so terrifying. The spirit-driving technique was more overbearing than he had imagined. Although part of it was because he was unprepared, under Xiahou Wujiang's spirit-driving technique, he did not even have the slightest chance to resist. Xiahou Wujiang narrowed his eyes, looked at Chu Xiu, and said coldly, "Chu Xiu of the Guanzhong torture room? I've heard of you. Recently, you've become very famous in my Eastern Qi. Do you really think that you can stand above all the heroes of the world just because you can fight against 100 people alone? The Guanzhong torture room sent you here to make a name for yourself. Just mind your own business. Are you qualified to meddle in other people's business and stand up for others?" During this time, Chu Xiu was indeed very famous in Eastern Qi. Even before Xiahou Wujiang came to the Ji State Prefecture, he had already heard of Chu Xiu's brilliant achievements. However, he did not take it seriously. Was it difficult to fight against 100 people alone? He, Xiahou Wujiang, did not have such an opportunity. If he had such an opportunity, he could also do it. Their Xiahou clan's spirit-driving technique was best at group battles, especially when it was one against many. After hearing of Chu Xiu's achievements, Xiahou Wujiang also simulated the scene at that time. If he was Chu Xiu, he could completely use the spirit-driving technique to control one or even several people to be a meat shield and let them kill each other. It was estimated that killing a dozen people would completely collapse the motley crew. It was even easier than killing Chu Xiu. He really did not take Chu Xiu seriously. Chu Xiu said lightly, "The Guanzhong torture room sent me here to make a name for myself, but I heard that you, young Master Xiahou, are very famous in Eastern Qi. Do you think that if I cripple you, it will be enough for me to make a name for myself? How dare you?" Xiahou Wujiang shouted, and a dazzling divine light bloomed from his eyes. It was extremely dazzling, and it seemed to have some kind of brilliance as it shrouded Chu Xiu. But at this moment, Chu Xiu's eyes glowed with a dark light as well. He executed the soul displacement technique, and in an instant, his eyes were like a bottomless abyss that pulled everything into it, causing it to sink and melt. The eyes were the channel to view the world, so in the early stages, mentality was emitted from the eyes as a medium. But if the mentality was cultivated to the extreme, it could even be transformed into a physical primordial spirit, and one could see the whole world with one's eyes closed. One could even open a heavenly eye between the eyebrows as a channel to the primordial spirit, just like the Taoist legend of Lord Qingyuan Daomiao, who had 3 eyes on his head. It was said that when the masters of the Xiahou clan used the spirit-driving technique with all their strength, a 3rd eye would condense in between the eyebrows that evolved completely from the power of the primordial spirit, and it looked very mystical. At present, neither Chu Xiu nor Xiahou Wujiang had reached this realm, but the mentality that erupted from their eyes was already shocking enough. Of these two people's mentality, one was like a golden radiance, extremely overbearing and powerful, while the other was like a gloomy deep abyss that devoured any kind of power. They were actually in a deadlock on the spot. In fact, in terms of the strength of the mentality, Xiahou Wujiang was definitely superior. After all, the Xiahou clan mainly cultivated spiritual power, while Chu Xiu had only cultivated the great art of extinguishing heaven and earth, exterminating soul shifting. But Chu Xiu still had the 9 words formula of fast and slow. He had already secretly formed the inner lion seal, and the power of the inner lion seal suppressed his body. Without any scruples, he erupted his mentality to fight against Xiahou Wujiang. At this moment, they were actually evenly matched. When the surrounding warriors saw this scene, they were all horrified. Whether it was the previous battle at the Water Cloud Temple or the battle of Chu Xiu in the Purple Cloud Restaurant, there were many onlookers, and they could be considered to have witnessed Chu Xiu's strength. All along, everyone had thought that was Chu Xiu's limit, but who would have thought that Chu Xiu still had a trump card? His mentality was actually so powerful that it could actually compete with Xiahou Wujiang. Chapter 243. The conflict between Chu Xiu and Xiahou Wujiang attracted the attention of a group of people. One of them was the youngest inspector in the history of the Guanzhong torture room, and also the dark horse of this god weapon conference. The other was ranked 10th on the Longhu leaderboard, the genius of this generation of the Xiahou clan, Xiahou Wujiang. The conflict between the two would be interesting to watch. At the same time, the commotion between the two had alerted the people of the Mo clan and the Hidden Sword Villa. The Mo clan of the Mirror Lake Villa was not the Mo clan of Xiangyang, after all. Mo Yezi alone might not be able to suppress the two, so the martial artist of the Hidden Sword Villa who was in charge of maintaining order at the door moved, leaping into the air and crossing over the crowd. He pointed out a sword finger. It was colorless and transparent, but everyone could feel the shocking sword will. That incomparably sharp and astonishing sword intent actually directly severed the mental energy between Chu Xiu and Xiahou Wujiang, causing the two of them to let out a muffled grunt and take a step back. It's Cheng Dongwang, the green cloud dual swords of the Hidden Sword Villa. An expert of the unity of heaven and man realm has intervened. The people present felt that it was a pity. If the two were to fight here, it would be very interesting. Cheng Dongwang was an expert of the Hidden Sword Villa, and was mainly in charge of the Order of the God Weapon Conference. He had some reputation in the Jianghu. The green cloud dual swords on his back were 6th transformation precious weapons, but if they were used with his unique sword technique, they could be combined into one, becoming a fake divine weapon with shocking power. At this time, seeing Xiahou Wujiang and Chu Xiu fighting so fiercely before the God Weapon Conference had even begun, he felt a headache. These disciples from large sects were so difficult to manage. With the strength of the Hidden Sword Villa, it was actually quite difficult to organize a conference of this level. If it were the Great Light Temple or the Celestial Master Abode of Longhu Mountain holding a conference of this level, then even the top 10 of the Longhu leaderboard would have to stay here obediently. Obviously, the Hidden Sword Villa could not compare to these two sections. The Guanzhong torture room was not weak, and the Xiahou family was on par with the Hidden Sword Villa. They did not want to offend either of them. Cheng Dongwang coughed and said, "The God Weapon Convention is about to begin. Even if you want to make a move, there's no need to rush. If you want to fight, wait until the God Weapon Convention begins. You will have the chance to do so then." As one of the hosts, the Hidden Sword Villa had spoken up, and this Cheng Dongwang, a great expert at the unity of heaven and man realm, had come. Even if Xiahou Wujiang was furious, he could only endure it. Looking at Chu Xiu, Xiahou Wujiang said coldly, "Very good. I underestimated you. I didn't think that even your mental energy was so powerful. Now, I'm a little interested in fighting you. My Xiahou clan's spirit control art isn't just this powerful." After speaking, Xiahou Wujiang turned around and left. He was taken to the other side. Seeing Xiahou Wujiang leave, Chu Xiu also retreated and didn't take the initiative to provoke him. Seeing that both parties had left, Cheng Dongwang nodded his head in satisfaction and also left. Behind him, Mo Tianlin smiled bitterly and cupped his hands at Chu Xiu, saying, "Thank you for your help, Brother Chu. If it weren't for you this time, I would have lost a lot of face. I probably wouldn't be qualified to stay in the land of Eastern Qi anymore." Chu Xiu waved his hand casually and said, "It was nothing. Brother Mo, you also saved me last time, so you're welcome. Besides, I also wanted to test this guy's strength. Anyway, we will definitely have to fight later. However, I have to say that the Xiahou clan's spirit control art is really powerful. His strength is worthy of his 10th place on the Longhu leaderboard." Mo Tianlin looked a little gloomy as he said, "I also know this. Back when he was in the physical invulnerability realm, I still had hope of fighting him. But now, he has reached the three-flower realm earlier than me, and his strength is so powerful that it makes people feel hopeless." Mo Tianlin was also a prideful person, but today, in front of his former enemy, Xiahou Wujiang, his pride had been crushed to the point where not even the slightest bit remained. In a head-on fight, it would be a piece of cake for Xiahou Wujiang to kill him. If it weren't for Chu Xiu's help today, he would have lost a lot of face. At this time, Luo Feiheng suddenly poked Mo Tianlin and said, "That's enough. You're a man, why are you crying after losing once? If you can't beat him now, can't you beat him in the future? Are you going to learn from Lin Kaiyun and seek death after being defeated by Chu Xiu?" Mo Tianlin's face turned red. Although Luo Feiheng didn't act like a woman, she was still a woman. He still felt a little embarrassed to be comforted by a woman like this. Chu Xiu asked curiously, "Weren't you drinking at the Xiaoxiang restaurant that day? How do you know about me in Sword King City?" Luo Feiheng rolled her eyes beautifully and said, "It's not like I drank myself to death in the Xiaoxiang restaurant. How could I not know? You crippled Sword King City's elite disciple of the previous generation, Sword of Great Light Fei Mo, in front of everyone in the Violet Cloud restaurant. This matter has long spread throughout the Ji State Prefecture. On that day, the girls in the Xiaoxiang restaurant were still discussing this matter. I have to say that Fei Mo's name isn't very good. Fei Mo, cripple me, cripple me. Now it's good. You really crippled him." Speaking up to hear, Luo Feiheng laughed twice. Then she suddenly changed the topic and said to Chu Xiu, "Right, you're now very popular in the eyes of the girls in the Xiaoxiang restaurant. Those girls have seen many courteous and elegant disciples of aristocratic families. Now, they want to change their taste. They all say that you, Chu Xiu, are very domineering and cold. If you go to the Xiaoxiang restaurant now, even if you don't pay, the girls will still throw themselves at you. That guy is the type that the girls are tired of playing with. Not only does he want money, he also wants purple gold." Luo Feiheng pointed at Mo Tianlin. This made Mo Tianlin speechless, but his mood also eased. Luo Feiheng was right. He wasn't Lin Kaiyun. His mental state wasn't so weak. Victory and defeat were common. In this world, among the young heroes, except for the little celestial master Zhang Chengzhen, who hadn't lost. Today, he lost to Xiahou Wujiang, but it didn't mean that he would lose to Xiahou Wujiang for the rest of his life. As long as he didn't fall, he still had the qualifications to continue fighting. Seeing that Mo Tianlin was fine, they continued to chat. At this time, almost everyone had arrived. However, at this time, opposite of Chu Xiu and the others, there was a commotion on by Wuji's side. Chu Xiu and the others looked over there. There were people preparing to squeeze to the front. The number of seats in the front of the God Weapon Conference was fixed. As long as you had strength and status, you would naturally be arranged to the front. Therefore, from the beginning, the Mirror Lake Manor's members had already reserved a few reserved seats in the front. Even if someone suddenly came, they would be prepared, just like Xiahou Wujiang. Even if Xiahou Wujiang didn't show up earlier, he would still be arranged to the front if he came. But because the God Weapon Conference was about to begin, some of the Mirror Lake Manor's disciples thought that no one would come again. Therefore, they gave some of the reserved seats in the front to others. As for the person who came at the back, it seemed like his status wasn't weak either. Everyone looked towards Bai Wuji's direction and saw a young man dressed in a white robe, holding a blue scabbard in his hand. His expression was cold and stern, and the aura he exuded was incomparably cold, causing people to feel a sense of awe at first glance. The moment he saw that person, Chu Xiu's eyes revealed a smear of surprise. Although it was his first time seeing this person, but Chu Xiu already recognized this person's identity. He should be the Azure Water Sword sect's eldest disciple, Falling Rain Sword, Shenbai. Chu Xiu had never seen Shenbai before, but this Shenbai's appearance was exactly the same as the Shenmo who died in his hands. However, his temperament was much colder than Shenmo's. Although the appearance was the same, it was easy to distinguish. Previously in Wei County, as the eldest disciple of Azure Water Sword sect, Shenbai's reputation was naturally very great. It was even to the point that everyone knew of him. But after Chu Xiu set foot in the martial world, he discovered that the Azure Water Sword sect's strength was actually just so. It wasn't considered too strong among the 7 sects and 8 factions. Shenbai himself was even more unknown in the martial world, and he hadn't even started to roam the martial world. Originally, Chu Xiu thought that it was unlikely that he would have any interaction with Shenbai in this lifetime. He didn't expect to see Shenbai here today. At this moment, a martial artist from the Mirror Lake Manor said with some difficulty, "Young Master Shen, the seats at the front are already full, but there are still seats at the back. Can you make an exception and temporarily stay at the back?" Shenbai's face didn't have the slightest expression. He just used an extremely cold tone and said, "Your God Weapon Conference is jointly organized by the Hidden Sword Villa to organize the God Weapon Conference, but in the end, you didn't even prepare enough seats." The disciple from the Mirror Lake Manor quickly said, "Of course we prepared enough, but young Master Shen came too late, so those seats have already been arranged for others." Because Shenbai wasn't famous in the martial world, the tone of the disciple from the Mirror Lake Manor had some complaints. "If you want to participate in the God Weapon Conference, why didn't you come earlier? Everyone else is waiting in the G State Prefecture, but you are special. Why must you come at the right time? Do you think you are a top 10 expert on the Longhu list like Xiahou Wujiang, and have the qualifications to come at the right time?" Shenbai said coldly, "If the arrangements have been given to others, then let them give it up. Those who can sit in the front row are all disciples from the top sects in the martial world. Now you want me to go to the back row. What is the meaning of this? Could it be that your Mirror Lake Manor thinks that my Azure Water Sword sect is no longer qualified to be ranked as one of the top sects in the martial world, and is only qualified to be associated with those second-rate sects?" Shenbai's tone was incomparably cold, and with every sentence, that chilling intent deepened. A wave of imposing prowess was faintly felt, causing the expression of the disciple from the Mirror Lake Manor to suddenly change, and cold sweat couldn't help but flow down. Chapter 244. As one of the 7 sects and 8 schools, even if the Azure Water Sword sect was in decline, it wasn't something that the Mirror Lake Manor could compare to. The Mirror Lake Manor's martial prowess was actually very weak, but with Mo Yezi, the previous divine weapon pavilion master and a smithing grandmaster, they had a great reputation in the Eastern Qi. Therefore, under Shenbai's powerful presence, the Mirror Lake Manor disciple was on the verge of tears. He didn't know what to do. The front row seats were already occupied. If he were to chase them away now, he would be offending them. If he didn't chase them away, he would definitely offend Shenbai, and it would be bad for both sides. Seeing the commotion over here, the others present also looked over to Shenbai's side. They were secretly muttering in their hearts, a declining sect like the Azure Water Sword sect actually sent someone over. They don't have a great reputation, but their temper is very big. In recent years, the Azure Water Sword sect's disciples had an extremely low presence in the pugilistic world. Even the entire Azure Water Sword sect could only find a few that were active in the pugilistic world. When the Azure Water Sword sect was at its peak, it should be when the Wei Kingdom still existed. During that time, the Azure Water Sword sect had a close relationship with the Wei Kingdom's imperial family, which was why they received the support of the entire Wei Kingdom's imperial family. Later on, the Wei Kingdom was destroyed by the Northern Yan and became the Northern Yan's Wei County. The Azure Water Sword sect was also suppressed by the Northern Yan imperial court and Northern Yan martial artists, and gradually declined. If Shenbai didn't appear here this time, the martial artists here would have even forgotten that there was an Azure Water Sword sect among the 7 sects and 8 schools. At this moment, Fang Huai, who was sitting next to Shenbai, didn't look too good. Because his current seat was actually prepared for a disciple from a top sect like Shenbai. Fang Huai's Fang clan naturally couldn't compare with a large sect like the Azure Water Sword sect, so he was originally arranged to sit at the back. But because no one else was coming, Bai Wuji asked him to sit in the front. So, he was the one who asked for this seat. The Mirror Lake Manor saw that the God Weapon Conference was about to begin, and it would be a waste to leave the seats empty, so they agreed. But now, Shenbai wanted someone to give up their position the moment he arrived. Wasn't this referring to him? Hence, Fang Huai immediately sneered and said, "The Azure Water Sword sect isn't strong enough, but they sure have a bad temper. You came late and yet you are complaining that the Mirror Lake Manor didn't prepare a seat for you. If you didn't come, the Divine Weapon Conference wouldn't even need to be held. Why don't we just wait here for you?" The Fang clan's strength might not be comparable to the Azure Water Sword sect, but they were still a Northern Yan aristocratic clan. Furthermore, they were on friendly terms with a major Northern Yan sect like the Drifting Snow City. With such a relationship, the Azure Water Sword sect naturally didn't need to be courteous and wasn't afraid of them. Furthermore, the Azure Water Sword sect had already declined to such an extent, and this Shenbai was a nobody in the martial world. What did he have to be afraid of? Shenbai shot his gaze towards Fang Huai and said coldly, "Who are you?" Fang Huai stood up and said indifferently, "Southern Yan, Fang Huai." Shenbai immediately sneered. For the first time, there was an obvious change in the expression on his face. It was now filled with disdain and contempt. "A nobody from a mediocre aristocratic clan dares to bark at me? Scram!" As his voice faded, Shenbai waved his hand and an icy blue sword chi whizzed over, heading straight for Fang Huai. The sword chi was extremely fast, and no one present was able to react in time. This Azure Water Sword sect disciple was actually so arrogant and actually made a move in front of so many people. Did he think he was Xiahou Wujiang or Chu Xiu? Hence, no one actually stopped it for a moment. Even Fang Huai, who bore the brunt of the attack, was shocked. By the time he wanted to make a move to stop it, the sword chi was already in front of him. Right at this moment, a cold snort suddenly echoed. Bai Wuji's eyes bloomed with a cold and eerie light. Astral chi condensed in mid-air, and Shenbai's sword chi was actually forcefully frozen and shattered under Bai Wuji's gaze. This was the extreme north's Drifting Snow Cities Bai clan's secret technique, Ice Soul Divine Eye. It was said that after reaching the completion stage, even the primordial spirit could be frozen and sealed. Fang Huai was someone he brought over, and he was also the first to allow Feng Hui to sit beside him. To put it bluntly, one must look at the owner before beating a dog. You, Shenbai, are so arrogant, but have you asked Bai Wuji? During this period of time, Bai Wuji was also very depressed, and a large part of it was because of Chu Xiu. It was fine if he didn't encounter Chu Xiu previously. Bai Wuji also knew that his chances of obtaining first place in this divine weapon conference wasn't high. But after encountering Chu Xiu, he was suppressed step by step. In the end, he didn't even have the qualifications to exchange blows with Chu Xiu. This was undoubtedly a very sullen matter. Therefore, from the time he met Chu Xiu in the Dragon Assembly Pavilion until now, Bai Wuji's heart had been suppressing a fire that he wanted to vent. In the end, Shenbai delivered himself to his doorstep. The Azure Water Sword sect and their Northern Yen sects already had some friction. Previously, when they were pursuing Chu Xiu, their Drifting Snow City and Mortuary Manor had a direct conflict with the Azure Water Sword sect. This caused their sects to unwillingly withdraw from the Wei County. With the new and old grudges added together, Bai Wuji didn't have the slightest intention to restrain himself. He immediately grabbed the silver spear in his hand and burst forth with Dipper Chi. With an incomparably powerful aura, he stabbed at Shenbai. A frog at the bottom of a well, and you dare to be arrogant here? This isn't your Wei County, where your Azure Water Sword sect can cover the sky with one hand. Today, I will teach you a lesson and let you, a frog at the bottom of a well, know what rules are. On the silver spear, strands of frost blossomed. Boundless chi and blood were attached to the spear, making it look extremely ferocious and domineering. On the opposite side, when Shenbai saw Bai Wuji's attack, his eyes immediately burst out with a hint of radiance. After cultivating the martial Dao for more than 10 years, this was Shenbai's first time stepping into the martial world. Shenbai still remembered what his master, Lu Gongyuan, once told him. Once he stepped into the martial world, he would no longer have the qualifications to turn back. Right now, Shenbai's shoulders were shouldering the entire Azure Water Sword sect's prestige and prestige. To become famous in the martial world, to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat in this battle, he, Shenbai, wanted the entire martial world to see his sword, to see the Azure Water Sword sect's sword. Therefore, the moment Bai Wuji thrust out with his spear, Shenbai's sword was also unsheathed. It was an extremely magnificent long sword. It was unknown what material was used to forge it, but the sword body was actually as clear and transparent as a sapphire. But on the edge of the sword, there was actually a sharp sword intent. As the sword descended, the icy blue Dipper Chi condensed into raindrops, and each drop contained an extremely strong sword chi. But when Bai Wuji approached, the rain-like sword chi merged into one, turning into a boundlessly sharp sword light, tearing the sky and splitting the earth. Under the sharp sword light condensed from tens of thousands of sword chi raindrops, Bai Wuji's protective Dipper Chi was instantly torn apart. The chi and blood on the long spear were dispersed, and even the long spear in his hand was blasted away, leaving a deep sword mark on the body. Under the powerful force, Bai Wuji was directly slashed away by the sword. The sword chi entered his body and tore the meridians in his body. This immediately caused him to spit out a mouthful of blood, looking at Shenbai with a horrified gaze. 3 flower at one's prominence. This Shenbai had actually reached the 3 flower at one's prominence realm. At this moment, everyone present was speechless, looking at Shenbai with a strange expression. Just how many young experts had been attracted by this God Weapon Conference? Including Shenbai, there were 4 experts in the 3 flower at one's prominence realm. Moreover, Shenbai's combat strength was also extremely strong. Although he was a level higher than Bai Wuji was still a young elite from the Drifting Snow City in the far north. He was also very famous in the Jianghu. Yet, under Shenbai's sword, he was already seriously injured, not even able to withstand a single move. This kind of combat strength was simply terrifying. Putting his sword back into its sheath, Shunbai looked at the disciple of the Mirror Lake Villa and said with a blank expression, "Now, do I have the right to sit in the front row?" The disciple of the Mirror Lake Villa was almost scared out of his wits. At this moment, Cheng Dongwang, who had just left, rushed back with a helpless expression. He had just gone to the back to arrange some things, but he didn't expect to see a fight here again. This time, it was even fiercer, and Bai Wuji was seriously injured. Why were these young people so angry? When he was young and wandering in the Jianghu, he was not like these people now, who would start a fight at the slightest disagreement, and they were all greeting each other to death. "Young friend Shen, please don't be offended by our poor hospitality. Young friend Shen, you are naturally qualified to sit in the front row." But at this time, Cheng Dongwang's tone changed, and he said in a deep voice, "But now, the God Weapon Conference is about to begin. If you have any grievances, you can settle it on the stage. Can't you all wait for a few minutes? If anyone makes a move now, it means that you are not giving face to my hidden sword villa. Don't blame me for bullying the weak and not showing mercy." Cheng Dongwang was also completely annoyed, and he began to warn the young martial artists present. After the warning, Cheng Dongwang also immediately sent people to carry Bai Wuji away for treatment. The disciple of the drifting snow city in the far north was injured in the God Weapon Conference. If he did not take good care of him, and something happened, wouldn't the drifting snow city vent their anger on him? When Bai Wuji was being carried away, he still had a look of disbelief on his face. He had come to the God Weapon meeting to make a name for himself. But before the meeting had even begun, he had been suppressed by Chu Xiu. And now, he had been defeated by a nameless person with a single strike, becoming his opponent's stepping stone. The ranking on the Tiger and Dragon leaderboard was based on either one's battle record or one's reputation. Back then, Chu Xiu was able to push him down, partly because of his battle record, and partly because of the conflict between the wind-sweeping tower and the drifting snow city. But this time, he was defeated by Shunbai. Needless to say, his ranking on the Tiger and Dragon leaderboard would immediately be replaced by Shunbai, and he would become one of Shunbai's battle records on the Tiger and Dragon leaderboard. Thinking of this, Bai Wuji's heart was filled with anger and unwillingness. It affected the meridians in his body that had been torn by the sword qi. He was so angry that he spat out another mouthful of blood and fainted. Chapter 245. Winner takes all. This phrase could explain 99% of the fights in the martial world. No matter how illustrious Bai Wuji's background was, no matter how great his reputation was, he was still defeated, and it was a miserable defeat. Therefore, no one paid any more attention to Bai Wuji. All eyes were on Shunbai. The Azure Water Sword sect's presence among the 7 sects and 8 schools was extremely low, so low that as long as the Azure Water Sword sect's disciples didn't appear, most people in the martial world would forget about this sect. But now, after seeing Shunbai's sword, everyone remembered that there was still a sect in the Wei County that was ranked as one of the 7 sects and 8 schools. Some martial artists saw Shunbai and even thought of the former Azure Water Sword sect master, who once dominated the martial world, the famous river-sinking sword Lu Gongyuan. Sometimes, the rise of a sect depended on one person, like Chu Kuanga and Guan Siyu from the Guanzhong torture room, or Yan Huainan from the divine martial sect. At this moment, everyone looked at Shunbai. Obviously he was the true talent that the Azure Water Sword sect had nurtured over the years, a stunning figure that could revitalize the sect. Shunbai sat in the front row. He didn't even look at Bai Wuji. A mere loser was no longer qualified for his attention. Therefore, Shunbai's gaze was on Chu Xiu. There was no hatred in his eyes, not even the slightest change in his expression. It was still incomparably cold. Chu Xiu had never seen Shunbai before, but as the enemy who killed his brother, Shunbai naturally knew Chu Xiu. Previously, when the Azure Water Sword sect didn't manage to capture Chu Xiu, Shunbai only felt regret. But this time, before he even arrived at the G state, he already heard of Chu Xiu's name. Shenbai found it hard to accept that this person, who he could easily crush in the past, was now famous among the younger generation of the martial world. But compared to 2 years ago, the current Shenbai was much more mature. He knew what he wanted to do, and he knew what he should do. He carried the expectations of his master, Lu Gongyuan, and the entire Azure Water Sword sect on his shoulders. Since he stepped into the martial world, he could only win and not lose. Pressing forward courageously, it was better to advance than to stop. Bai Wuji was his stepping stone to fame, and so was Chu Xiu. Shenbai slowly raised the long sword in his hand. The sword was not unsheathed, but he turned the hilt around and pointed at Chu Xiu 3 times. This caused the expressions of everyone present to change abruptly. This was a way for swordsmen to provoke their opponents, or it could be said that it was a gesture to issue a challenge. When the sword and the saber met, there was no question of life or death. Although it was silent, this gesture of challenge was even more direct than verbal provocation. Usually, unless it was a life-and-death feud, the other party would not do such a thing. However, they didn't understand. Did Chu Xiu and Shenbai know each other before? Shenbai had just stepped into Jianghu. How did the two of them form such an irreconcilable grudge? If Shenbai was only here to make a name for himself, he wouldn't have to be so ruthless, right? No one knew the inside story, but they were somewhat impressed by Chu Xiu's ability to attract hatred. In this eastern Qi land, he made a lot of friends. Mo Tianlin and the other two were sitting next to him. However, it was obvious that he had more enemies, and they were all the strongest ones. For example, Xiahou Wujiang, Tong Kaitai, and Shenbai, who severely injured by Wuji as soon as he arrived, were all at the Three-Flower Realm. Mo Tianlin, who was next to Chu Xiu, asked, "Do you have a grudge with this guy before? When did the Azure Water Sword sect have such a young expert?" Chu Xiu said indifferently, "I am a martial artist from Wei County. When I left Wei County, part of the reason was that I killed his brother." In fact, Shenbai was still very famous in Wei County. After all, he was the last disciple of the Azure Water Sword sect master. It was just that he had never stepped into Jianghu. After not flying for 3 years, he soared to the sky. After not flying for 3 years, he shocked the world with a single brilliant feat. Shenbai was already accepted as a disciple by Lu Gongyuan when he was young. He didn't just wait for 1 or 2 or 3 years. Obviously, he planned to shock the world with a single brilliant feat. Mo Tianlin calculated the time. When Chu Xiu became famous, it was when he was an assassin in the Blue Dragon Society. In this way, he wasn't even at the innate stage when he was in Wei County. As a result, he killed the brother of the Azure Water Sword sect's head disciple. This ability to cause trouble also made Mo Tianlin a little speechless. "Be careful later," Mo Tianlin reminded. Chu Xiu nodded and said indifferently, "In fact, I am always careful. Anyway, I have offended many people in this Jianghu. Adding Shenbai to the list doesn't make a difference. In fact, most people in the Jianghu should have an awareness from the moment they step into Jianghu. Either kill or be killed. Once you let your guard down, then you are not far from death." Mo Tianlin nodded with some understanding. After the two of them chatted for a while, the Divine Weapon Conference officially began. On the north side of the high platform, a group of martial artists walked out. Among them, there were 2 people who were the most eye-catching. One of them was a tall and mighty elder. Although his hair and beard were all white, his skin was rosy and he looked dignified without being angry. This elder was the renowned blacksmith master, Mo Yezi, the previous pavilion master of the Divine Weapon Pavilion. In fact, in terms of strength, Mo Yezi also had the cultivation of a martial Dao master. However, this martial Dao master was a pseudo-martial Dao master. He only had the cultivation level, but not the actual strength. Why did martial artists learn martial arts? To put it bluntly, it was to fight and kill. The word martial also meant to fight with a spear. Only those who could kill could be considered the true martial way. As for the divine weapon pavilion, they were infatuated with refining weapons. To them, the battle prowess of the martial way was secondary. To them, inner force was only a method to forge weapons. Therefore, although the disciples of the divine weapon pavilion also cultivated inner force, 99% of the divine weapon pavilion's martial artists did not even know a single move or half a martial skill. They would not even fight with others in their entire lives. However, even if the divine weapon pavilion's combat strength was low, their status in the Jianghu was not low. After all, no sect would dare to offend these blacksmith masters who stood aloof from worldly affairs. Moreover, the divine weapon pavilion was not without the ability to protect itself. Legend had it that the divine weapon pavilion had a peerless godly weapon that had already given birth to a complete weapon spirit. It could protect the divine weapon pavilion for a lifetime. When the peerless godly weapon was born, it had earth-shattering power. Legend had it that it could easily kill a martial Dao master. However, this was only a legend. After so many years, no one had actually touched the divine weapon pavilion. Therefore, no one had seen this peerless godly weapon that only existed in legends. Beside Mo Yezi was a well-dressed middle-aged man in a brocade robe. His hair was neatly combed, and he held a long sword in his hand. This man was the manor master of the hidden sword villa, Cheng Tingshan's younger brother, seven-part sword, Cheng Tingfeng. This man was a true martial Dao master. His talent was even greater than his brother, the manor master Cheng Tingshan. However, Cheng Tingfeng had been hurt by love in his early years. It even left a mental scar. In the end, he begged the Bodhi Zen monastery's master to help him. He used the Bodhi Zen monastery's secret technique, the Wang Nianwu Zen scripture, to erase a part of his memory. Although he had completely forgotten about the hurt, his mental state was incomplete. Therefore, he could only use 70% of his sword will. This was why it was called the seven-part sword. However, although Cheng Tingfeng could only use 70% of his sword will, his strength was still enough to look down on others. He could not be underestimated. Mo Yezi stood up and looked at the surrounding warriors. He said in a low voice, "Everyone, since the heroes of the Jianghu are all here, I will not explain further. Everyone should know what the God Weapon Conference is about. God weapons have spirits. Especially natural God weapons, they must have a master that they can recognize in order to unleash their full potential. The weapons that I have forged have always been the weapons that choose the master, not the other way around. In the battles of the Jianghu, a martial artist may have countless weapons in his hands, but a weapon with a true spiritual nature will only have you as its master. Therefore, I hope that all of you will not disappoint the saber and sword in your hands." Mo Yezi was a little obsessed with weapons, but everyone could understand. For most martial artists, the time that their weapons accompanied them was even longer than that of their relatives. Mo Yezi continued, "All right, I'll cut to the chase. The main character of this year's God Weapon Convention is naturally the God Weapon. However, the God Weapon has yet to be fully formed. This time, this old man is prepared to use a new method to refine a weapon. As for what I'll be able to refine in the end, even this old man has no idea. However, if it is successful, the God Weapon that is born will have unlimited potential. It may even become a 9th revolution God Weapon." Everyone's breathing quickened when they heard this. For the majority of martial artists, a divine weapon was an existence that could only be encountered by luck. Apart from the divine weapon pavilion, there were only a handful of other forces that could forge a divine weapon. Most of them had to spend a long period of time to nurture their 6th revolution precious weapons to give birth to spirituality, or they could find precious materials and ask a master refiner to refine these materials into the precious weapon, turning it into a divine weapon. Moreover, the majority of these divine weapons were only at the 7th revolution. It was extremely difficult to upgrade them to the 8th revolution or even the 9th revolution. Furthermore, every time a divine weapon advanced by a revolution, its power would definitely increase by leaps and bounds. If the godly weapon that Mo Yezi forged really had the potential to become a 9th revolution godly weapon, then this godly weapon could definitely be passed down as a supreme treasure of a peak sect. Looking at the crowd, Mo Yezi waved his hand. Immediately, a few disciples of the Mirror Lake Manor walked out and arrived at the center of the 5 arenas. They pressed some kind of button and in an instant, a huge furnace rose from the ground. There was even a formation around it. In an instant, an astonishing amount of heat exploded out. You're tuning in to the Unparalleled SwordWill YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.